What is women's economic empowerment? A woman is economically empowered when she has both the ability to advance and succeed economically and has the power to make and act on economic decisions. But today, women around the world remain underrepresented in the economy because of prevailing social and cultural barriers, especially as entrepreneurs. This is evident in the SME market segment, where registered women-owned enterprises only account for 37% of all businesses around the world. Entrepreneurial pursuits of women, particularly in the SME sector, remain constrained by access to capital. And while SMEs are typically under-resourced, women tend to start businesses with less capital than men do. Women have shown to outpace their male counterparts 1.5 times in terms of business expansion and growth. A robust SME sector creates opportunities by bringing business and jobs beyond the economic core. Thus, there is an increasing focus to grow the SME market for women-owned and women-led enterprises. More resources and investments are required to fuel this largely untapped market opportunity. Studies suggest that women tend to reinvest as much as 2 times more than men into their own enterprises, families, and communities, providing a means for more sustainable growth and improving social outcomes for future generations. Economic empowerment for women increases women's access to and control over economic resources and opportunities, including jobs, financial services, property and other productive assets, skills development, market information, and networks. Increase women's access to capital, business opportunities, and information. Enhance women's confidence and skills to be effective role models for change, allowing them to expand their networks, community involvement, developing decision-making and leadership roles as a result of women's entrepreneurial success. Investing in Women, an initiative of the Australian government, supports women leaders in the SME sector, the economic backbone of developing countries. Investing in Women also expands access to capital for women's SMEs through pioneering interventions with impact investors. Enable a better world. Invest in women today. To know more, please visit investinginwomen.asia.
It's time. Time to turn your ideas into reality. A reality created by a visionary like you. An innovative problem solver who cooks up 5-star tech solutions. A creative entrepreneur who's ready to build a business and be in the spotlight. A strong leader who empowers others through her work. You see a world of opportunities, and we see you. We're Startup Pinay. We help women like you launch startups, find mentors, and meet investors. You have what it takes. We can help you make it happen. It's your time. Start with Startup Pinay.
What makes a successful and resilient company? A company that is innovative, has dynamic, productive teams, and high employee engagement. A company where people stay. How? Workplace gender equality is key to achieving these goals. Workplace gender equality is when every member of the workplace has equal access to resources, opportunities, and benefits to thrive and progress at all levels. Companies committed to workplace gender equality hold themselves accountable. They make sure that policies and practices are in place to eliminate both direct and indirect discrimination and work hard to build an inclusive work culture.
I think the biggest challenge, if you don't realize there is an issue, you will never going to fix it. So that's why we think that our job is to increase the level of awareness through showing statistics that actually there are still inequalities when it comes to gender.
Companies that prioritize workplace gender equality perform better financially. According to a 2019 report from the International Labour Organization, globally, 74% of firms that track the impact of gender diversity in management reported profit increases ranging from 5 to 20%.
On the practical side, even look at the market. I think NIMA is changing, technology, all these things are changing. I think just having different voices, not just gender, it's just inclusive in terms of age, gender, everything. People recognize that it's time for them to hear different voices at the board level in management.
Companies are only as good as their people. Retaining the best talent, in good times and bad, is critical. A company loses money when it loses talent. Studies show that replacing an employee costs more than 25% of a person's annual income. Policies and practices that promote workplace gender equality can help prevent good employees from leaving.
I think the reason why the company is looking through this opportunity is basically to look through into the future more, to see sustainability by giving equal opportunity to everyone.
Large and influential companies have come together to form business coalitions in Indonesia, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The business coalitions have proven to be trusted advisors and centers of excellence. They work with diverse firms to improve their bottom line, increase employee retention and engagement, and build reputations in the region.
There's always a value to, as they say, working together, harnessing individual strengths, resources to a common advocacy.
Workplace gender equality supports your most important asset, the people you work with, attracts and retains the best talent, enhances your company's reputation, and improves productivity and profits. Contact the business coalition in your country to learn more. What is women's economic empowerment? A woman is economically empowered when she has both the ability to advance and succeed economically and has the power to make and act on economic decisions. But today, women around the world remain underrepresented in the economy because of prevailing social and cultural barriers, especially as entrepreneurs. This is evident in the SME market segment, where registered women-owned enterprises only account for 37% of all businesses around the world. Entrepreneurial pursuits of women, particularly in the SME sector, remain constrained by access to capital. And while SMEs are typically under-resourced, women tend to start businesses with less capital than men do. Women have shown to outpace their male counterparts 1.5 times in terms of business expansion and growth. A robust SME sector creates opportunities by bringing business and jobs beyond the economic core. Thus, there is an increasing focus to grow the SME market for women-owned and women-led enterprises. More resources and investments are required to fuel this largely untapped market opportunity. Studies suggest that women tend to reinvest as much as 2 times more than men into their own enterprises, families, and communities, providing a means for more sustainable growth and improving social outcomes for future generations. Economic empowerment for women increases women's access to and control over economic resources and opportunities, including jobs, financial services, property and other productive assets, skills development, market information, and networks. Increase women's access to capital, business opportunities, and information. Enhance women's confidence and skills to be effective role models for change, allowing them to expand their networks, community involvement, developing decision-making and leadership roles as a result of women's entrepreneurial success. Investing in Women, an initiative of the Australian government, supports women leaders in the SME sector, the economic backbone of developing countries. Investing in women also expands access to capital for women's SMEs through pioneering interventions with impact investors. Enable a better world. Invest in women today. To know more, please visit investinginwomen.asia.
It's time. Time to turn your ideas into reality. A reality created by a visionary like you. An innovative problem solver who cooks up five-star tech solutions. A creative entrepreneur who's ready to build a business and be in the spotlight. A strong leader who empowers others through her work. You see a world of opportunities, and we see you. We're Startup Pinay. We help women like you launch startups, find mentors, and meet investors. You have what it takes. We can help you make it happen. It's your time. Start with Startup Pinay.
What makes a successful and resilient company? A company that is innovative, has dynamic, productive teams, and high employee engagement. A company where people stay. How? Workplace gender equality is key to achieving these goals. Workplace gender equality is when every member of the workplace has equal access to resources, opportunities, and benefits to thrive and progress at all levels. Companies committed to workplace gender equality hold themselves accountable. They make sure that policies and practices are in place to eliminate both direct and indirect discrimination and work hard to build an inclusive work culture.
I think the biggest challenge, if you don't realize there is an issue, you will never going to fix it. So that's why we think that our job is to increase the level of awareness through showing statistics that actually there are still inequalities when it comes to gender.
Companies that prioritize workplace gender equality perform better financially. According to a 2019 report from the International Labour Organization, globally, 74% of firms that track the impact of gender diversity in management reported profit increases ranging from 5 to 20%.
On the practical side, even look at the market. I think NIMA is changing, technology, all these things are changing. I think just having different voices, not just gender, it's just inclusive enough in terms of age, gender, everything. People recognize that it's time for them to hear different voices at the board level in management.
Companies are only as good as their people. Retaining the best talent, in good times and bad, is critical. A company loses money when it loses talent. Studies show that replacing an employee costs more than 25% of a person's annual income. Policies and practices that promote workplace gender equality can help prevent good employees from leaving.
I think the reason why the company is looking through this opportunity is basically to look through into the future more, to see sustainability by giving equal opportunity to everyone.
Large and influential companies have come together to form business coalitions in Indonesia, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The business coalitions have proven to be trusted advisors and centers of excellence. They work with diverse firms to improve their bottom line, increase employee retention and engagement, and build reputations in the region.
There's always a value to, as they say, working together, harnessing individual strengths, resources to a common advocacy.
Workplace gender equality supports your most important asset, the people you work with, attracts and retains the best talent, enhances your company's reputation, and improves productivity and profits. Contact the Business Coalition in your country to learn more.
It's time. Time to turn your ideas into reality. A reality created by a visionary like you. An innovative problem solver who cooks up five-star tech solutions. A creative entrepreneur who's ready to build a business and be in the spotlight. A strong leader who empowers others through her work. You see a world of opportunities, and we see you. We're Startup Pinay. We help women like you launch startups, find mentors, and meet investors. You have what it takes. We can help you make it happen. It's your time. Start with Startup Pinay.
A warm welcome to everyone. Before we proceed in today's event, let us all sing the Philippine National Anthem, followed by the opening prayer. Good morning, everybody. I am Michael Valera, and welcome to the last day of Philippine Startup Week 2021. With this year's theme, Beyond Recovery, Filipino Startups Redefining Opportunity. It's great to see a lot of attendees, even on our last day of the conference. We're especially grateful for those who encouraged their friends, families, and their colleagues to join today's activities. You are in for a treat. So let's jump right into the program, as I'm sure you're all curious to find out what the day has in store for you. This last day is jam-packed with amazing events, starting off with today's main summit, the Startup Pinay Conference. This summit is a special one. The Startup Pinay program of Kubo Innovation Hub, in partnership with Investing in Women, was created to work toward uplifting and enabling more women leaders in the startup and technology space. During today's main summit, we'll be hearing from some iconic women leaders in the government, the corporate world, the startup community. And these women are breaking boundaries and changing the modern business landscape of the Philippines today. And you, our dear audience, will be thrilled by all the panels we have lined up. From the women working on tech solutions in the government, to the women creating partnerships toward corporate startup innovation, and the women entrepreneurs who have managed to overcome the challenges of running their businesses through an unprecedented pandemic. These inspiring leaders will no doubt impart invaluable words of wisdom and insights for all of us present here this morning. So let's start our program by watching Vice President Eleni Robredo as she gives her opening keynote message for you all today.
And thank you for coming together to talk about how women can take an active role in leadership. I hope we are safe and well. All over the world, we see fearless, focused, and forward-looking women breaking the glass ceiling. Women help craft policies that impact the global economy. We are reshaping the landscape of advocacy and enterprise and redefining what it means to lead in these extraordinary times. Amidst a crisis that is testing the resolve of even the most advanced countries, we find women serving in the front lines as healthcare workers, as scientists, as community mobilizers, as decision makers. We don't even need to look far to find proof that women can get things moving in times of crisis. In our own communities, women leaders are rising to the occasion, finding ways around obstacles, and quickly adapting to the crisis. We see them braving the risk of infection to ensure that the young, the sick, the poor, the homeless, the most vulnerable among us are taken care of. We see them in the most remote communities, finding their way around obstacles, coming up with creative solutions to help their constituents, collaborating and listening, and acting with urgency and compassionate resolve. Their work further proves the important role that women play in society, and that no gender has a monopoly on the capacity to lead. This bears pointing out because it has become easy to equate being a strong leader with brashness and aggression, with a loud, domineering style of leadership that more often than not disempowers and frightens others. But as women leaders have proven, there is a more humane and effective way to display the strength of our leadership. This is through nurturing and empowering others to become the best version of themselves. It means channeling strength in a manner that is firm yet dignified, compassionate and empathetic, and thrives quietly yet decisively amidst adversity. These values are what animate Angat Buhay Women, the OVP's flagship program for women empowerment. While working with partners from the private sector, hundreds of participants from all over the country joined our workshops for aspiring women entrepreneurs. They provide capacity training in business planning and introduce aspiring women entrepreneurs to the basic concepts of entrepreneurship. My experience as a lawyer working alongside many women who were survivors of abuse has taught me that the first step to genuine empowerment is economic empowerment. Many of my clients could not leave abusive environments because they lack the ability to provide for their children. Giving them the means to provide for their own needs and the needs of their families opens the door to larger areas of fulfillment and the expansion of their dreams. This sends an important message to future generations of women that change is possible, that they can liberate themselves from the conditions which keep them disempowered, and that they have real personal role models to inspire them. But the work does not end there. Our task now is to dismantle from top to bottom the old and oppressive systems and politics that hold back not only women, but all people who struggle in the margins. Let us reshape narratives, break conventional notions, challenge gendered roles, and spread the message that true progress is not the privilege of a few, but a right to be enjoyed by all. Let us all rise as one society, anchored on competent and compassionate governance, led by empathy, solidarity, and love. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you so much, VP Robredo. We'll start off with our panel discussion, Gov for Tech, how women in government are advancing technology. This panel will not only provide insight into the national government's initiative to push innovation forward, but also discuss the opportunities for founders and startups that are looking for support. To moderate our first panel of the day, we have Kubo Innovation Hub and Idea Space Foundation's Executive Director, Katrina Rauza Chan. Let us all give her and the panel a very warm round of applause.
Good morning to all of you who are joining us today. So, welcome to the Philippines Startup Week Startup Pinay Main Summit. And I hope you've all been enjoying the last 4 eventful days in this year's Startup Week. As you may not know, Startup Pinay is our initiative to push more women into participating in the tech startup space. We have a great set of sessions for you today, which I'm kicking off, and I'm glad to have you join us for today's Startup Pinay sessions. If you're a female entrepreneur looking for more support in terms of exposure, capacity building, or just making new friends, please check out our website, www.kuba.com.ph, and sign up for Startup Pinay today. So, again, hello to all of our wonderful Startup Pinays, women entrepreneurs and enablers. As mentioned, my name is Kat Chan, and I'm the Executive Director of Idea Space Foundation and Kuba Innovation Hub. I'll be your moderator for today's fireside chat. Partnering with the ETI and the DOST all these years in pursuit of growing our local startup ecosystem has certainly opened up an array of opportunities for our startups and founders. Our government indeed does play a key role in progressing our ecosystem and community forward on a national scale. And we consider ourselves very lucky to work with some of the most amazing women leaders in government who have pursued this with us. So, in today's fireside chat, we'll be tackling how women in government are advancing tech in our country with 2 strong women leaders who surely have much more to say about this. And I'd argue for the startup eyes out there are 2 of the biggest decision makers and influencers when it comes to the rollout of our country's startup policy. And without further ado, firstly, I'd like to introduce Undersecretary Dr. Rowena Cristina Guevara, the USEC for Research and Development at the Department of Science and Technology. For our second amazing panelist, I'd like to introduce Undersecretary Dr. Rafaelita Aldaba, USEC for the Competitiveness and Innovation Group at the Department of Trade and Industry. So welcome to both of you, and thank you again for joining us today. Before I jump in, I do want to lay the groundwork for this discussion. Our goal for this chat is really to share with our audience, your personal insights and experiences as women in government, now involved in the tech startup space, and of course, the government's role in pursuing this advocacy. I think it's not news in the tech startup space that our country still needs, that the tech space is still largely male dominated, but I did want to spur discussion about this from this perspective, especially of our important leaders and women leaders in the government. Okay, just to formally start this off, I may ask both of you to kind of briefly introduce yourselves and share with our audience your role, and perhaps to give a bit more context or different flavor to this discussion, though. What's your journey been like, or how did you ladies rather end up in the roles that you're in. So maybe Sakfita, you'd like to start.
Yeah, hi, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to this panel, which I think really is something very important, and especially together with Yusek Gev, a very good partner, and of course, Kat, Kubo. Well, how did I enter government? I was a researcher for a very long time. I think all my life I was a researcher, except in 2014 I was recruited by DTI, and I'm glad that I joined the department. I mean, I'm coming from another world. I used to be on the other side of the fence. I was the one advocating for changes and reforms in policies, but now I find myself being one of the decision makers. And to me, it's really important. It's a good combination, the research background that I had before entering government. And I think Yusek Gev would also share the same experience because she was also a researcher previously and a professor. By the way, in my case, I was not into teaching. I'm really 100% researcher, but really it's been a wonderful journey, a lot of lessons learned, and I'm really happy that over the last 6 years that I've been in DTI, a lot of changes have been made, and you see things unfolding. I mean, the priorities that we had before were different from the set of priorities that we have right now, but all of these things are interconnected, and it's really a journey still unfolding, and a very exciting world indeed, especially with the coming of all these new digital technologies.
I didn't realize you were a long time researcher, Yusek Fita. But one person I did know was from the research field previously was Yusek Gev. So yeah, Ma'am Gev, baka you can introduce yourself and let us know how you ended up where you are currently.
First of all, magandang agham to everyone who are with us in our PH Startup Week 2021. And good morning, Yusek Fita and Kat. I'm happy to be with you today. My journey has been a very good one. I'm an electrical engineer by profession. I'm a professor of electrical and electronics engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. I've been fortunate that when I entered this male dominated field, I've been blessed with very good friends along the way and a very supportive family also. Um, I was the first female instructor at the electrical engineering department. I was the first female chairman of that department for 6 years. And I was the first female dean of the UP College of Engineering. But I was also the youngest dean ever of the college. But most people always remember that being the first female dean rather than being the youngest dean. My journey has been filled with a lot of research work and also teaching. I love teaching, by the way. It's my favorite part of being a professor. But along the way, I had advices for their master's, PhD, and undergraduate research. I started the laboratory called UP Digital Signal Processing Lab at the 1990, and I'm very happy to report that we have had many graduates, both male and female, who are now very productive individuals in the industry. As a worker in government now, as undersecretary, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to join the Department of Science and Technology. I owe 14 years of scholarship from DOST, from high school to college to my PhD. And to be an undersecretary for research and development has given me a very wide, uh, shall I say, freedom to do reforms in policies. So, for example, my favorite part is the Science for Change program, where we are able to reverse the disparity in R&D funding across regions in the country. I'll tell you more about it later. But thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you again, Yusek Fita and Yusek Gev. That's amazing. As a maybe younger female leader in this industry, the the quote unquote glass ceilings that you've broken for us and that you continue to pave the path for, no, it's really been inspirational for a number of startup Pinays that are making their way through as we speak. Um, you know, I think you said, Kev, no, speaking to your comment, parang not just being one of the youngest at the time, siguro, pero also the first female, parang in, or many first females in a lot of these things. I think, this is exactly why we're having this discussion today. No, is how can we get, how can our work now pave the path now for not just being the first, but the first of many women leaders in our fields. No, so thank you so much for sharing that, Yusek Gev and Yusek Fita. So obviously, both of you have extensive experience working as leaders with our government. You've paved the path for many women leaders and have broken glass ceiling, so to speak. No, but I guess based on your current experience, like, what do you feel is the perception about female leaders, especially in the tech industry? Do you think there's a disparity, and has has it changed or evolved since the time that you started in government and what you're seeing today? So maybe for this question, I'll start with you, Sekev, and then move on to you, Sakita.
Kat, women leadership is highly encouraged and supported in our country's government landscape. Though we acknowledge the difficult journey for our women to reach high level positions and break the norms. The number in terms of female representation in the legislative body, for example, in the Philippines, consisted only of 28% of the available seats in 2020, and may be true also to elected government officials down to the local government units. Women representation in government still needs to be continually supported at all levels to counter and address gender stereotypes that consider women as weak, emotional, indecisive, and these challenges can be addressed in part by education, training, and providing equal opportunities for appointment of various positions in government. The rights and welfare of women are central in our government's policy, where it can be shown in our policies. The Philippines is the one of the few countries with a gender provision in the Constitution. The Philippines is also one of the earliest signatories to the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and most importantly, Republic Act 9710, or the Magna Carta for Women, was signed into law last in August 2009. The Magna Carta is very important because it spells out that government funding, we have to assign 5% of that funding for gender and development. So both men and women are capable of leadership, and if given more opportunities to serve, enhance skills, and grow, then our women leaders will also be able to break down social and cultural norms that limits women representation in governance. But to answer your question, yes, there are policies in place for the government to make sure that female leaders in the academe, in the industry, and in government will rise.
Thanks, Yusek Kev. And yeah, 5%, like it's something, no? Pero I think there's definitely more room there to grow
Mhm.
even further. What about you, Yusek Fito? What's your experience been? And what's your take in terms of the perceptions of women or the barriers real? Like, yeah,
Mhm.
and have you experienced them yourself?
Well, I would say to some extent, yes, probably because I'm a female, and hence that's something. I mean, it still plays a role, especially if the decision makers are males. So I would say that, of course, despite all of the policies stating that there should be gender balance and more equality, but I think uh, we need to really be able to demonstrate this policy as an important priority, particularly the way leaders are saying it, how they do it. So, in other words, leaders should walk the talk. And while we hear leaders from various organizations, not only in the government, say that they will hire more women, but still there are no clear plans on how to develop and keep women in leadership positions. And to accelerate women into leadership, I think it's important to focus on succession in organizations, identifying areas where women can advance and help them, support them obtain the necessary skills and knowledge and experiences that are needed, as well as to determine gender career paths so that women don't get stuck in job silos that are historically female, like communications, HR, and support roles. And another important thing that I would like to bring is creating an inclusive environment where women can achieve their potential. This is, for me, very crucial. It goes beyond policies and hiring practices, but the most powerful way an organization can do it to promote more women leaders is really to build a culture of conscious inclusion. We need a change in mindset, as the World Economic Forum describes it, creating the desire, insight, and capacity of people to make decisions and lead, think, and act with a conscious intent of including everyone. So, to me, building this culture of conscious inclusion is important in order to remove those pre-existing biases, not only across gender but across income, enterprise, size, geography, and age.
Absolutely. So, conscious inclusion is something that, again, we have to be conscious about, for sure. I also heard you touch on, the career progression, career paths for women, and not just the ones that are typically associated with the fairer gender, and even involving male allies and, the existing leadership, in terms of, how do we really plan or look at how women are being involved as this whole space evolves and continues. um I guess for both of you, no, I think you both identified some progress we're making when it comes to how women are being engaged in our field, but what would you say are the biggest challenges right now? And I guess in terms of how you guys are designing your own programs and you're leading your own teams, right? Like, what are we doing in order to address some of these challenges? And yeah, I guess, I think we all acknowledge that it is the women have a significant role in tech. So, if we believe that this is important, right, like, what are the challenges and what are we doing to kind of try to address them? And I guess for either Yusek, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So yeah, please jump in.
Kat, I would like to say something about the engineering field, no? When I was a student back in the 80s, only 10% of the students in my college were female. After I became the dean, my successor was also female, and she was the dean for 6 years. And after her, another woman succeeded her. My point is that by the time we had three women deans in our college, the percentage of female engineering students went up to 53%. So the leadership is really important. I think it draws more of the female students to the college because they see that the leadership is there. Now, talking about research and development from the DOST point of view, because of the law that I mentioned, we have to monitor the percentage of female program leaders and project leaders. I'm very happy to report that it plays at around 42 to 44% of all the programs and projects that are led by women, 42% to 44%. So the number is good. But what more can we do? Well, when our researchers submit proposals, they are required to put in there what they're going to do to make sure that the project is responsive to gender. For example, if somebody is going to create a new machine, a woman should be able to operate it as easily as a man can operate it. So these are things that are embedded in our research proposals, which only happened in the last 6 years or 7 years. So these are new things that we're trying out. And the hope is that the product that will be produced from R&D is something that is useful both for the male and the female population of the country. So I trust that in the startups, because we're also trying to balance the numbers, we would be able to encourage more women entrepreneurs to become startup founders and leaders by crafting a particular program for them. I can talk more about that later.
No, but that's really great. No, you said, Gav. I think even in the earlier part of my generation, definitely with my parents' generation, no, there was parang biases and around you can't even, let's say, get alone if you're a woman, no, parang without having your husband or your father go sign it. Ako speaking as a Pisay alumna, parang I always took issue with the fact na yung class number ng lahat ng women were always all after the guys, no, alphabetical order. Pero I think, there's definitely a greater consciousness now around, how some of these little things that we're doing, like can really make a huge impact in terms of how women are perceived, or even how women are electing to, or even feel that they belong, in industries, especially in the STEM field. I guess, how about you, Sakfita? Parang what are your observations of DTI in terms of challenges around that women face currently, and what are we doing to mitigate these things?
Well, I would say, Kat, based on my experience, like what I've said, I went through the same process as well. I had to really prove myself. I have to work hard in order for me to get into this position. So I would advise the females out there, do not be afraid to take risks. Go beyond your comfort zone, capitalize on your strengths and leadership qualities in skill, in knowledge, in experience, and emotion. Lead by example while being open, supportive, and collaborative with others. Look for bandwidth and become role models for other women to follow. Be resilient and agile. And we all also we need to make people at the center of our work, especially in terms of policy crafting, and implementation of plans and programs. And at the same time, we need to listen and engage with stakeholders, emotional and heartfelt appreciation of the needs of the people, and avoid implementing wrong programs or policies. Um, Probably it's my research background that has really helped me navigate the policy world, the actual policy making, and program formulation, and being able to implement all of this. But at the same time, we also need to think like an entrepreneur. We need an entrepreneurial mindset. Design thinking and innovation, these are very important. Well, of course, an entrepreneur is a person who organizes and operates a business with considerable initiative and risk. And people in government should also think this way. We need a vision and mission, and how to achieve this vision. We need to articulate vision to drive the mission. And we need to maintain frontline focus and unrelenting commitment to the people, to our stakeholders, to the public. And at the same time, of course, it's important to be purpose driven, to encourage innovation. We need to think outside the box. We need to be transparent and authentic, and embed ecosystem thinking in our work. We also need to celebrate failure. For each failure, there is a learning. So fail fast, learn fast, and improve fast.
That's an amazing message na Yusek Fita. And yun nga, if there was any misconception na parang are the people in government and their audience are not like at the vanguard of these mindsets around how to push forward, you're sorely mistaken. Please join our government also, as women leaders.
Yeah.
Be inspired by some of our ladies here today, for my USEX. Like, please join the government. Like, if you want to help our country advance our policies, our and move in a big way, not just what we can do for tech and for startups. So I think going towards the last portion of our chat here today. It went by super quickly, no? Pero I want to ask both of you. Maybe it's a plug, it's a magic wand, it's whatever you wanna call it, no? Pero like, yeah, what are we up to in the government now that we should be letting people know about in terms of how we're supporting women in tech, women in government that want to enter this space, also our startup founders and entrepreneurs. If you could share with us some of the programs and projects that you're implementing at the moment to support this cause, I would love to hear it, and I'm sure our audience would too. So maybe for this one, I'll start with you, Fita, and then you, Kev.
Well, I've already mentioned that this is really very close to my heart, working with startups. And even I myself, like what I've said, I want to think like an entrepreneur whenever I need to approach certain issues or problems. I have to step in the shoes of an entrepreneur and try to address the problems that they are faced with, and empathize in order to help me come up with better ideas or better solutions to problems that we're confronted with. And so, right now, as we all know, we've just passed the Innovative Startup Act. We already have the guidelines. The steering committee has been meeting several times already, and we're already, in the case of DTI, we're already in the process of procuring the services of some entities who would help us implement the programs as indicated in the Innovative Startup Act. Well, we are in the process of establishing the Startup Business One-Stop Shop in order to facilitate registration. And then, of course, the creation of a startup venture fund, which is going to be implemented as a fund of funds program. Of course, Yusek Gev has her startup grant fund, and she will talk about it later. But we will, apart from, of course, supporting R&D, DTI will be working together closely with startups and startup enablers in terms of providing support in your participation in local and international events, as well as your collaboration with local and international enablers. And then there are also financial subsidies to be provided, including tax breaks, grants for startups, along with startup visas and the establishment of startup eco zones. We're all really very excited to be implementing all of these programs, and really they could create a lot of very meaningful impact, especially in terms of creating a robust startup ecosystem. So we are going to provide incubation and development and entrepreneurship program for startups with minimum viable products. And for the startups that are already in their commercial stages, we will be providing an acceleration, valuation, and corporate entrepreneurship program. So both programs aim to help startups grow and scale their business operations. And we are also going to implement a global acceleration program to immerse and expose startups to the global ecosystem and enable them to pursue global business development and fundraising. And of course, I hope I still have time. Two more. We are also in the process of building a National Center for Artificial Intelligence Research. This is going to serve as hub for data scientists and other researchers as they conduct AI R&D, AI trainings, and AI consultancy services. And this center aims primarily to support the AI needs of startups, of MSMEs, and large enterprises. And hence, I'm really looking forward to its implementation, because I know it's going to serve as a great place for AI startups, for training, entrepreneurship, and mentorship. Even for those that are not yet in the AI space, of course, they can definitely go to the National Center for AI Research. And we are also supporting 8 regional inclusive innovation centers in the country, located in major cities like Davao, Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, and others. And the goal of the RICS is to connect startups and spin-offs from universities with government agencies and the business sector, and accelerate the commercialization of their products and services. These innovation centers also serve as venues for design thinking workshops, along with networking and engagement with the academe and industry. And of course, we are working closely with the DOST, with USEC GEV, as well as with NEDA and DICT. We would like to be able to harmonize and align all our startup policies and programs, and ensure that we are able to address the needs of startups at every level in their development life cycle. And this is for
Thank you.
all. This is for
Yes, thank you so
everyone.
much, Yusakita. Like, I'll try to recap that. I hope I don't miss anything, but let me know if I do. So, first, yun nga, if you're a startup Pinay or really any aspiring business in the regions, DTI has the RICS program, the Regional Inclusive Innovation Centers for you. For AI naman, again, like, I know DOSC also has like a Sparta program and a few other initiatives. I don't want to preempt, no, pero um, some of the leading AI practitioners in the country are led by women. So it's a fantastic space to get into. Definitely a big part of future proofing. No, a lot of our service industry sectors. No, so something that I'm sure the DTI is supporting. We have a number of programs for that. The DTI will also be supporting both incubation, acceleration programs. No, just whether you're still building your idea or ready to expand globally. And there's also the S-Boss, so the one-stop shop. I know for the ladies out there, lalo na yung mga may families or needing work-life balance, we really, sobrang laki ng demand to make sure that we don't need fixers anymore. We don't need like too many steps, no, to get our businesses listed, to get like everything put together. So there's the S-Boss program for that you should watch out for. And last but not the least is the fund. So funding is always the number one most requested item. Um, I think you will be happy to hear that the head of the NDC, which is heading the SBF, is also the GM now is also a female. So again, lots of opportunities for our startup Pinays. Don't be discouraged. Our government is watching out for you. So that's so many announcements from the DTI and USEC FITA. Thank you again for that. I know marami rin po tayong announcements from the DOST. So the floor is yours po, ma'am.
The Department of Science and Technology allocates 35% of its budget for research and development. We provide funding to universities, colleges, the private sector, government research and development institutions, and even individuals. The way that we work on this research is that after you do the research, we provide technology business incubation facilities where you can incubate your technology such that you can come up with a viable product. We have 48 technology business incubators all over the country, and we have supported around 600 startups in these 48 technology business incubators. And we're targeting 1,000 startups by 2024 or 2025. When you join any of these TBIs, you can be coming from the university or coming from the private sector. You will get the usual support for legal, marketing, accounting, and so on in those incubators. We also have what we call facilities for doing R&D with the government. As mentioned by Yusek Fita, we are going after the fourth industrial revolution technologies. So for example, the DOSC put up what we call the Advanced Manufacturing Center or AMCEN, where we have 3D printers that can print very, very small devices and can also print huge um, devices. For example, we can print as big as a helicopter LSC. We can print as small as smaller than your fingernail, and we can do a lot of things in there. But this facility, we only put up one, but we have networked with the Fab Labs of the DTI, such that you can also go to the regional or the provincial uh, colleges or the universities in your province for 3D printing. But more than that, we have another side called the Math Dev. If you would like to develop materials for 3D printing, like biomaterials for bones, for teeth, or even skin. If you want to print food, we can also accommodate that. And we also have what we call Amerial, which is automation, mechatronics, and um, if you would like to do robotics, you can also work with our Metals Industry Research and Development Center. If you would like to do artificial intelligence, we have set up graduate degree programs with some universities and we offer scholarships. But we also have Sparta, which is a online training for data science. We have already 25,000 scholars in that program. And once you graduate, you have an opportunity to join another program for what we call a project that you will do to help the government. So you will get access to government data and come up with some data science application that will help the government be more efficient, be more practical, and be able to serve the people better. We call that program Goddess. And aside from these facilities, the funding, and the support, we also have a program for startups, as mentioned by Yusek Fita, particularly the Startup Grant Fund. And so far, we have supported 22 startups from PSHIERD, and we plan to open more funding this coming year. And specifically for women, the DOSTP Shared has what we call the Women Helping Women Innovating Social Enterprises program in 2020. We seek to help out 10 women led social enterprises every year through the provision of grants and offering a special incubation program for women entrepreneurs as part of the program. The WHY's program aims to bring together government agencies and private organizations to seek out and prepare women led social enterprises for growth, scalability, and subsequent venture capital funding. Special focus is given to social enterprises in this program since social enterprises are revenue generating businesses with a mission to help communities. Moreover, the program provides a suite of services which includes early stage funding, training, skills development, mentoring, and business incubation. More importantly, the program will provide access to technology to enable even women from rural communities to be part of the global economy. Since DOST represents the country in the Committee of Science and Technology in the ASEAN, uh, we have prepared programs wherein we can have exchanges among startups, funders in a virtual environment. So recently, about 2 weeks ago, we sponsored the first ASEAN Startup Conference. And we were very happy to see that, the Philippines, we fielded 21 startups. And then the rest of the ASEAN member states also fielded almost the same number of startups. And we were very happy to see that the trend is that there were as many women startup founders as there are men startup founders in ASEAN. So I believe that the Philippines, we will do a lot better if we can support more of you women entrepreneurs to be part of the startup ecosystem. We are here for you.
Thank you so much, Yusek Gib. That was a lot there, no? Pero just to try to recap, I think the DOST again, women, no? Like if you're listening, there's no excuse. Talagang everything from R&D, no, 35% of the budget of the DOST is going into research and development and making your ideas come to life. And I think if I'm not mistaken, the DOST interprets R&D very broadly, no? So hindi lang yung siguro yung typical notion niyo of what research involves, but really how do we create something new and bring it into the universe. Quite a number of programs on the not just the research part, but make it come to reality. Sabi nga ni Yusek Kev, they can manufacture everything from the size of our fingernail to, industrial scale, parang manufacturing in food, in materials, in, again, probably whatever you can come up with, no, like the DOST can support you in doing that. And then again, no, when it comes to the funding side, similar to the DTI, a number of grant programs supporting social enterprises in the case of women helping women and WHYs, and also the startup grant program. So if you aren't familiar with these yet, please check out the resources which we'll be sharing for you so that we can take advantage of all these programs that our government is offering, because we're all here to support you and to help you turn your vision into reality. So yeah, thank you again, Yusek Geb, Yusek Fita, for that engaging discussion. Again, for the women entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs out there, there's no excuse now. We're really out here to help you, and I hope you take advantage of all of these programs that our government has to offer to support you, since we're rooting for you and the success of your businesses. So, I suppose I'll do my Boy Abunda question. I'll invite you, Kevin, you to share your final advice, final message to our listeners, especially the women entrepreneurs and startup Pinays. Yeah, maybe I'll start with you, Yusek Fita, and then Yusek Kev, no, to close out our session for today. So, Fita, off to you.
Thank you, Kat. Maybe I would just want to share as well that together with you, with Kubo, of course, DTI is supporting Startup Pinay. And in fact, through this program, 32 women founded startups were promoted by DTI abroad. And there are also other programs where DTI has been actively supporting the participation of women, particularly this digital classes, which we are having through the DTI YouTube channel. And recently, we just learned that based on a report, Filipina sellers already own two-thirds of businesses in Lazada. And this increased from 60% prior to the pandemic. So, according to the International Finance Corporation, if this trend continues, women in ASEAN could help e-commerce grow by another 280 billion US dollars between 2025 and 2030. And so my advice is, again, for the women out there, do not be afraid to take the risks. Yes, there are still these biases, but we really need to go beyond our comfort zone and capitalize on our strengths and leadership qualities. We need to be resilient and agile and make people at the center of our work.
What an inspiring thought to close on, Yusek Fita. Thank you so much. What about you, Yusek Gev? What's your parting words and advice for our listeners today?
When I was in college, when we entered freshmen, there were 70 of us freshman electrical engineers. Out of the 70, there were 6 women. When we graduated, there were only 27 of us who graduated, and there were 6 women. We are survivors, and that's how we operate. And if we become entrepreneurs, I am quite sure we will survive and we will do very, very well. That's all.
Thank you so much, Yusek Gev. Laban, women entrepreneurs. I think that's really our message for today. And yun nga, if the entire Philippine Startup Week has taught you anything, I hope you've all been inspired. Yun nga, it's probably the best and only chance to create new billionaires, no, new game changers in our industry is for us to innovate, to take the risk, as Yusek Fita said, to start our business and run with it, run our companies the way we know we can as women. So thank you so much again, Yusek Fita, Yusek Gev. And with that, I believe that's all the time we have today for our fireside chat on women in government, advancing tech. I really hope all of you have had a great startup week. We have our decision makers today. So you have faces to the names, no, in case kailangan nyo na mga mag-approve na mga proposal nyo. Um, I really had a wonderful time, like getting to know both of you better. I'm sure our listeners, our women entrepreneurs, also appreciated the time that you've spent with us this morning. So again, to our audience, thank you so much. Please stick around for the rest of the Startup Pinay Summit. to hear from the rest of the amazing panel of women entrepreneurs we have for you today. And once again, I'm Kat Chan, the ED of Cuba and Idea Space. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have an amazing rest of the startup week. Please sign up and join our activities, our government's activities to help support women founders. And yeah, I'll see more of you soon. So thank you very much and have a great rest of Philippine Startup Week.
Thank you so much to our panelists. With these capable women at the helm in the public sector, we know that technological advancements and innovations are now being made to help shape a brighter future for our nation. Next, we have a fireside chat. Today's discussion revolves around the topic of inspiring the next generation of female leaders. Stay tuned, folks. We're excited to hear from some amazing women startup founders for this next chat. Moderating this fireside chat will be Ms. Eunice Braga, Head of Marketing and Communications at Kubo Innovation Hub and Idea Space Foundation. Let us all welcome these talented women with a round of applause.
Hello and good morning, everyone. I hope that everyone is having a wonderful and exciting time at this year's Philippine Startup Week 2021. Thank you for joining us today in the Startup Pinay Main Summit program. My name is Eunice Braga, and I will be your moderator for the fireside chat for today. So I also handle marketing and communications for Kubo Innovation Hub, and I'm really excited to talk to the leaders who will be joining us for this morning's fireside chat. I hope you all are ready, as our topic this morning will be inspiring the next generation of female founders. We have a lot of young female entrepreneurs here today looking towards the future of building their startup into a scalable and sustainable business. And I believe that the speakers in this chat today are just the right people to hear from, not only just to share their experiences, but also to inspire you to push forward and make your business a reality. First, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Rebecca Kirsch, who is the founder and chief executive officer of Tang App. Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing today?
Hi, Eunice. Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to have you here for this fireside chat.
Yes, very excited. I think it's a topic that is super important. So I'm really thrilled to talk about this with a few other phenomenal women.
Thank you, Rebecca. And then next, joining us for this fireside chat is Ace Gapus, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Blogopalooza.
Hi, Eunice. Great to be here. Thank you so very much for having us.
Hey, Ace. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for today's discussion?
Oh, it's 11.
I love it. I love the energy. Thank
Love
you,
it.
Ace. And last but definitely not the least, I'd like to introduce Crystal Gonzalez, who is the co-founder and chief executive officer of Picaroo. Hi, Crystal.
Hi, very
Yes,
nice to be here, and I'm so excited to also get to know the other women here and to learn from everyone too.
fantastic. We're so glad that you can join us. So, hello to all of our speakers. Again, really glad to have you on board for this fireside chat and joining us for this year's Startup Pinay Summit. So, the Startup Pinay program really aims to enable more women leaders in the startup and technology space. And definitely, it's a perfect discussion to have for those who may be looking to finally start making their startup idea a reality. So our focus for today is really to discuss your own experiences as a woman founder and hopefully light that spark in more founders joining us this morning. So that being said, I want to kick things off and start this discussion already. So Crystal, you've been working on different startups over the years, Fiverr, Honest Bee, and now Picaroo. So what started your desire, what sparked your desire to take the leap into the startup space and be part of this burgeoning ecosystem?
Right. Actually, my background was really, I was really from telco. That was my first job. I worked for PLDT and Smart. Even while I was taking my master's program, that's how I started. And then my first, I guess, try at startup is when I first worked in Yahoo. So that was my first, I guess, glimpse of tech. and startup in general. That time, Yahoo was still considered a startup back in 2010. And I really loved it. It was so fresh. Age was not a factor. It didn't matter, even if that time I think I was I was 25. Um, it didn't matter whether what your gender was, what your background, educational background was, especially working with other cultures. Um, I think that's what I liked about it. Learning from other cultures, interacting with different kinds of people. And what got me started was really that Yahoo. I loved Yahoo. I loved being online. It was my dream job pretty much. And then from Yahoo, I think the next startup, real startup I joined was Lazada. So as part of the starter team of Lazada, we had picnic tables literally as our working tables. We didn't have air conditioning. I found so much fulfillment and excitement, I guess. Um, Trying to create and promote do something from scratch, right? I didn't stay there long because they also reset the team in Asia. But I was given the opportunity to launch Viber in the Philippines. And I was the first employee outside of Israel where Viber was from. And Philippines was the first country where Viber was going to launch outside of Israel or Tel Aviv. And it was just super fun and exciting. I really appreciated that again, like, the like that innovation, trying to promote and create something new, something that people had no idea like how to use that platform, that the kind of technology. That time people were still used to SMS and it was so expensive to even have your data plan on. And that was the time that I was supposed to launch Viber.
Mhm.
And that time, I think people use mostly either SMS or a little bit of Skype, I think. And from there, it was history. That I would say that was my first baby that had to launch from scratch on my own. That was my first role as a country manager, and I really enjoyed it. I like launching technology that I know can change people's lives. And that time, especially Yahoo, aside from it was so expensive to have your data on, or to even like and it was hard to talk to people abroad. It was expensive to have roaming. It was expensive to pretty much like call each other through data.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a game changer, especially because I had a lot of relatives abroad, and I knew it would change a lot of especially Filipino families' lives, because most households have at least one OFW per family living abroad. So that's how it started. And then after launching that, the next interesting platform for me was Honestbee, also because that time I was gonna be a mom of two already. And I realized how life changing and beneficial it would be for someone, even like me, who was like a mom, a working mom, to be able to, lessen the burden of having to do chores. And then now with Pickaroo, finally I'm able to do something again from scratch, but also create something that I know can make especially women's lives better, especially moms and busy people like me. There.
Yeah. Thank you, Crystal. I actually just wanted to say I'm a fan and have used all of the products from all of the companies you've worked for.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
And now that you've had these different experiences, different industries, even within the startup and tech space, were there any challenges that sort of deterred your journey along the way?
Definitely a lot. So especially as I was launching Viber, I was also pregnant with my first child. So I think I just started in Viber, maybe I was 6 months um from the time I was supposed to launch Viber. And I remember one of our biggest events called it was gonna be on Independence Day. It was a huge event, huge party. And I was so nauseous because it was my first, I think, or maybe second month of pregnancy that time. So that was challenging, trying to launch something from scratch and trying to launch a product that people had no idea how to use, while having your first child and being nauseous and having all those symptoms. So that was definitely challenging and exciting, both launching something and going through pregnancy. And in general, like even after that, when I was gonna launch Honest Bee, that time was different because I just gave birth naman. I just gave birth to my second child. So that was almost 3 years after, over 3 years after I launched Viber. I wanted to launch Honestly here, and um I think my first few days launching Honestly, I had to be in Singapore for a couple of weeks, and I was still breastfeeding. I breastfed all my kids. And I was breastfeeding, and that my second child was just 2 months old when I had to be in Singapore for 2 weeks. And I pumped breast milk every day. And my first board meeting, I had a Haka pump, and it's quiet because it didn't have batteries. And I remember like having to put out my breast pump with milk in it, and it was all men, by the way. So I think that's also a common thing. All the startups I worked for, Lazada, Viber also because it was
Mhm.
based in Tel Aviv, and even Honestly, most of my almost all my colleagues are men.
Yeah.
And that adjustment, and I didn't really adjust. I mean, I was to me it was non-negotiable. I was going to breastfeed my kids, but being able to balance both and just stand your ground, and not compromise your beliefs and
Mhm.
motherhood and all of these, like, I would say it wasn't easy, and definitely it was part of both the excitement and the challenge as well. And same goes for Pickaroo. When I was launching Pickaroo again, I was carrying my third child now.
Yeah.
So the first few months of Pickaroo, similar thing, and this time it's really I'm the one starting it from scratch with my co-founder Kevin Tan. Um, and I was going through my pregnancy again, and going through being nauseous and balancing pregnancy and
Mhm.
motherhood while launching a startup. So I guess, yeah, like that's one of the main key challenges that to me, like, I would always remember, balancing not just being a mother but even being a wife. Also,
Yeah.
I think that adds also to the challenge of being a woman, which makes it both exciting and fun.
Mhm. Yeah. So if I'm just to recap what Crystal mentioned, so a lot of the appeal really of the startup space is not just the variety of experiences. Anybody who's taking notes, if you can recap in the comments all of the places Crystal has worked for, that would be fantastic. So it's the variety of the experiences. It's also the opportunity for leadership. And then I think also one thing that really hit home for me was when Crystal talked about the opportunity to do meaningful work that really impacts people's lives positively. So, but on the other side, there's also the challenge of really balancing these different responsibilities, not just care for the business, but also care for the household, as Crystal has mentioned. So, Crystal actually mentioned earlier that she would often be the only voice in a room of male leaders. So, why is having more female founders in the startup space important? And how do they make the ecosystem more vibrant and more diverse?
Yeah, thank you, Eunice. So compared to Crystal, I've been in probably the startup space for like 1 minute, and I'm really honored to hear from your experience. And thank you for sharing. So, I mean, very simply put, there's research about this, right? Like, so research shows that you need just 30% diversity to get a better group result. And so you could think, well, then why does it matter that, let's say there's a solo founder. So I'm a sole founder of and CEO of Tang App, and I'm a woman, a female. But why would that matter? But if you think about it, which I've never met anyone that has said differently, is entrepreneurship is not done alone. So even if you are a sole founder, right, there is a team of fantastic people that I have support from. You work with investors, you have advisors, you have a board. it's not something that you can do on your own. And if you truly think you can, then I would sincerely ask you to pause and reflect, because it is a tough journey. And so with that thought of research that, just 30% of diversity in a group setting or a space is what leads to significantly better result, then, and the thought of entrepreneurship isn't done alone, then when you have male founders leading startups only, as well as male VCs or investors, as well as male boards, and then you're actually not optimally leading to the best innovations or the best results, and that's what's difficult to see, right? We don't actually know what we've missed out on. We don't know what we're missing on because we have not enough diversity in the startup space. So from sort of a scientific research perspective, which has been proven, I would say that. But I think from a more, just as for humanity, I think it's really important that we acknowledge what women and other underrepresented minorities have contributed to the world and society, right? When you just look at the global pandemic, and that there was a study that showed that countries led by female leaders significantly saved lives and had quicker and better responses. Like it's all out there, right? And I actually had a friend who recently attended an event that where Sally Krawcheck, the founder of Elvest, which is, she's a fantastic inspirational role model to women in finance in general, but also I would say humanity, to be honest, because one of her first questions in that event was, raise your hand if you think giving women more money is going to do bad to the world. And of course, no one raised their hand, right? So we know it's all out there. The information is out there that it matters, that we live a more inclusive society, and we acknowledge and celebrate women, and we don't just focus on their looks or their outfits or their ability as a mother, even though that's very important, and we're phenomenal at it, but there is more to that. And so I think from a humanity perspective, it's more about the better we're inclusive as a society, even also in the startup space particularly, then that's the planet we leave behind to our children, right? And future generations. It shows us that everybody gets a voice, everybody gets a platform, everybody can contribute into making the world better. Everybody can contribute to coming up with new innovations, which is so important. Especially today. So I think I could go on about this for a long time. But I think I'll leave it at those 2 points for now, Eunice.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. I think what I liked about what you said is really, if I could sum it up, it's that innovation demands perspective and nuance and really the full range of experiences, so that we're not just creating for a group of people, but we're actually really creating solutions that could make a positive change in everyone's lives. So we've heard from both Rebecca and Krista, and now I want to bring Ace up. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership and gender equality. So, Ace, how has your organization created a support system so that you would have a supportive, caring culture for your employees, male, female, or even LGBTQ? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd like to mention that first and foremost, we've always been work from home or work from wherever, even before COVID, because we've always believed that being digital first is very doable naman. So you can imagine when we were all forced into this lockdown, for us, it was just another day, And the reason for this is because for us, it's not work-life balance anymore. It's more of work-life integration, which means that for our company and for our employees, it's important to think of work as part of life. And we leave it up to our teammates to prioritize which part of their life matters at any particular moment. And me, as a company's leader, I'd always advise my teammates na unahin ang sarili. You prioritize yourself first. Because for us, it's always hard to pour out from an empty cup, if you know what I mean. No? And the kind of culture that we promote inside our company is very much attuned to how by the way, we're 100% female company. All of my teammates are
Oh,
females.
wow.
Yes, we don't have a male species inside our company. Yeah, so you kind of support your teammates that way, because as a female leader myself, it's important for me to really understand that we have our days when you're not feeling well because your period is coming. You know what I mean? All of those things. You experience that also, so you understand when your teammates experience that. That's why when things like that happen, and these are physical factors, these are physiological things. So when things like these happen, you will understand that people might not be performing at their optimum for that day. You
Yeah.
know, migraine, sakit ng puson, So I would always advise them, take care of yourself first, because it's hard to pour
Mhm.
out from an empty cup. So, we've always believed in integrating work with life outside of it, so
Yes.
that people won't feel the need that they won't feel that they would need to take a break from it, if you know what
Mhm.
I mean. And we've been promoting that kind of culture ever since.
Yeah. So a lot. I like what you mentioned about care. So how have you turned that culture of care into policies for the organization to make sure that it's really codified and really is a system?
Yeah, I think it's also very important to note that right now our team is not really as big yet, so we can still
Hmm.
tailor fit our policies to what the team will need.
Yeah.
Uh, so for us, yeah, when we craft policies, it involves a lot of consultation with the team. My team can attest to it. It involves a lot of consultation with the team. Do you think this will work? What do you think will not work? Is this something that you will likely, you will be okay to say yes to? Ganon. Right
Mhm.
now, we still have the luxury of having that bit of consultation with the rest of the team,
Yeah.
and that's really how we do our policies right now. We take note of the personal circumstances of the individuals who are part of the team.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's it. Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you, Ace. I really like what you said about empathy and listening, which have been like at the core of what you've been doing with Blogapalooza and how you're leading your team. And I feel like that's important not just for female leaders, but just leaders in general. And I like that at this stage you're really looking at tailor fitting policies and the new ones, which is actually what Rebecca mentioned earlier. So we've been talking for quite a few minutes now, and I just wanted to move the discussion forward. So, actually, since this project is something that we've been working on with Australian Aid and Investing in Women, we actually did an FGD with respondents talking about the factors that contribute to them not pursuing their startup dreams. So, in that FGD, they said that some of the factors that affect them include a culture of discrimination, aka startup work is not a woman's job. B, that the belief that women are family oriented, and that the focus is on settling down, especially for founders who are 30 years and above, and the focus is on settling down and building a family. And C, that women are emotional and base their decisions primarily on emotions, which is considered a risk to the people that they work with. So, to enter this, I guess, back half of our discussion, I really wanted to talk about gender norms. So, given what you've just heard, these different gender norms or stereotypes, what advice can you give to founders to hurdle these gender norm roadblocks, be it male or female founders? Maybe we can call on Ace first.
Sure, yeah. Well, you know what I'm going to say there is, it's 2021. We can be who we want to be. And I think
Yeah.
there are plenty of opportunities, not only for female founders, but mostly for female founders, because the internet has opened a lot of opportunities for females to really flourish. Like right now in the
Mm-hmm.
industry where I belong to the influencer marketing industry. 80% of the most successful creators are females. This
That's
is a very
fantastic.
female dominated industry. Yeah, so I don't believe that we are limited,
Mhm.
just like how most people would believe, because I see it in my industry right now. The wealthiest creators, the most successful creators, and even the brands, they're looking at creators that that can capture the audiences better. And I think for us
Yeah.
females, we really have that magic, that power. We can really just easily relate to people more
Mhm.
easily. So I don't think that we have to. I don't believe that we have to think that we are limited. There are
Yeah.
so many opportunities for women, and these opportunities, they don't have to come at the expense of not having a family. I think in this age, we really can have it all. I mean, why not? I've seen people do it, and I myself am determined to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ace. So Crystal, would you like to take on the question?
Sure. I guess like something that helped me for one with regards to this challenge is I actually even before startup I mentioned I started in telco. I started my career in telco, which is very male dominated. And so I was lucky enough to start my career with that kind of tone and challenge,
Yeah.
and I just ignored it completely. I observed it. I mean, I noticed it also because, well, I mean, I saw it in my early younger years, but it was majority very male dominated. Majority were males, but I also focused on the females, the few females that were leading it, and I think even in my first job, I told myself I want to be that, and
Mhm.
I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
So again, what I guess like the challenge that I would pose to anybody, to all the women that um may have hesitation is, you have to be a catalyst for change. Number one,
Mhm.
representation is very very important. And this is unfortunately not the same kind of representation that our parents saw. Our
Yeah.
parents, like even for my parents, they're 65 now. They unfortunately grew up in a time which did not have much representation. So my mom, herself, unfortunately had to do the similar pattern, I guess, like most of your parents as well, where they did have a career. My mom started in banking, but when my sister came, she felt the need to sacrifice her career to be a
Mhm.
good mother. But that was because not just there was less representation that time, but that was how society was made that time,
Yeah.
back in the 90s or late
Yeah.
80s for that matter. So we're not in that time, like A said. So I would, I guess, like encourage everybody to be a catalyst for change. Make sure you are part of that change, and you represent women in any industry for that matter,
Mhm.
and be able to challenge systems, cultures, because if we don't do it ourselves, who will? Men will not do
Mhm.
it for us. So we have to take that actual proactive initiative to make sure we're all represented. We challenge the culture, we go for it,
Yeah.
and we don't compromise. I think that's my other message, key message, to remove that thinking of limits and having the need to compromise. No one asked us to do that. Even my mom's time, nobody asked her to make that compromise, really. She made
Yeah.
that herself because of her own, I guess, barriers and upbringing
Mhm.
and all of these. So now that we know better and we're all living in a better generation and society and the digital age, just not to accept the norm and be the change yourself pretty much.
Mhm. And I guess Crystal, if there's a male founder who would come to you and say, Crystal, how can I be a better like co-founder or investor for the women entrepreneurs or employees that I work with? What would be your advice?
Which actually happens a lot because like I mentioned, even in Viber, all the other country managers of other countries were men. Same with Honestly. And they do ask me. And even my co-founder, our founder and my co-founder now, in Picaro, Kevin, we do learn from each other, and we both ask each other advice. But I guess normally when that happens, when they ask advice and I also ask them advice, it's very beneficial also that I am a woman, number one, and a mother. Because the common observation I notice, even with my husband, and we're partners, he's also in tech. He's one of the executives of Google. Um and my advice always comes from me being a woman and me being a mother, which is to
Yeah.
always see people better, to care about them more.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, normally for men, they're very critical thinkers and they're more just thinkers. And sometimes it's not healthy for their teams or for the business when you just look at numbers and you just pretty much just use your brain. It has to be both.
Yes.
And about I think that's the advantage of women as well because you're able to think and use both your brain and your heart and care. It's natural to us. It's innate.
Mhm.
To be able to use both always at the same time. You cannot, it's hard to separate it. And that's what makes us special and unique. And that's what makes us good mothers and good sisters and good daughters because we care more, we think more as well,
Yeah.
and we're able to see things in a different perspective, not better perspective, because again, like, we're equals, right? Um, no one's better. It's just that we're unique that way, that we can do both and use both.
Mhm.
There.
Yeah, I guess this ties back to what Rebecca was mentioning earlier about perspective and how we have to make room for nuance, especially in this space. So yeah, Rebecca, I wanted to ask you the same question.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. I think just to start off with, there's a fantastic TED Talk by Dana Cans. It's called The Real Reason Why Female Entrepreneurs Raise Less. And it talks about gender bias and how it establishes itself also in the startup space. And I think it's sort of a must see for everybody in the startup space, both men and women. And on that note, I think what would be fantastic is if next year we have this exact panel and we ask men questions. Why do you think there's less women in the space? Or, what do you think female founders struggle with? Because I think it's also important to put the work on everybody in the system, right? We've created a system where we expect certain things of women and we expect certain things of men. And those are the roles that create these gender norms that we've established them together. And so I think it's also important to make sure everybody in the system tries to change it. So not just talking to women about this. And I think that my advice would be on, unfortunately, having grown up in different countries and cultures, I'm very lucky. I'm Filipino, Dutch, and American, but I've never really felt out of place, maybe a handful of times. And that was a big luxury and a privilege. However, being a Filipino founder in fintech is one of those times. And it was tough. So I think some of the lessons I learned is make sure you find your tribe and your hype people that will always support you, because the system's not going to change today or tomorrow. I absolutely echo what Ace and Crystal said, and make sure that you be a catalyst for change and focus on the values that you care about and put that into your business. And the care element, I think that's so important. But you're also unfortunately not going to change everything today, and that does mean that you are going to face comments that are unnecessary, or get extra questions on your financials. There's a huge bias towards women not knowing or understanding finance, whereas I've seen male founders raise millions of dollars with not a single Excel sheet prepared, and honestly sometimes a bit of a shabby idea. And so I think that's whereas I always get asked about finance and our forecasts, and everybody knows at the idea stage none of that stuff is that relevant. You should have a plan and you should have goals to work towards, but that like revenue goal in month 9 in year 4, like that's absolutely going to change. But I always get questions about it, and that's bias. And so I think make sure you find your tribe and your hype people, and that will always be in your corner, that you can reach out to and say, oh, I just had this very annoying investor call. And it's tough because you do often feel you have to smile and nod. I have been frequently mansplained blockchain technology to, often incorrectly. And if it's a potential investor that, besides that unfortunate mention, I do care about having as a partner, and on all other fronts, is a fantastic human, just has a bit of bias. Like you can't say, oh, well, actually that's really wrong, and I don't think you know what you're talking about. So those are tough things, right? And unfortunately, as women, we're very used to absorbing all that, and and just trekking on with life. And so I think it's important that you find the right support. And so besides leaning on other people, be your best friend. What would your best friend tell you in this moment, right? Like, we are so hard on ourselves sometimes. I'm massively generalizing, but society demands women to be far more perfect than men, right? We have to be able to do it all. Like, yes, we can have a career, but you better be a perfect mom as well. And I think a fantastic example is sometimes, instead of perpetuating it and being hard on yourself, I would say be your best friend. And then I think the last thing is sort of, get going towards female founders. We need you. And then once you're there and you're, as successful as Ace and Crystal, then do things that you can to change the system. So at TangApp, we offer paternity and maternity leave. And this for me is a huge point, and it is mandatory. So it's multiple months, but it is mandatory for both men and women to take at least 1 month. So we started to notice that there just still is this societal tendency as a man not to take up paternity leave, even if it's offered, and worry about. And I think that's where it starts. If there can never be this thought on there's a difference between hiring a young woman and a young man, because this one might be out for a few months at some point, then that's how you slowly change things, right? So I would say get going, and then build things differently at your company, like Ace and Crystal have fantastically done. So thanks as well to everyone here for doing what they can to change it.
Yes. So I love the fact that all of you have talked about your own journeys, and also the different ways in that you're actually recognizing the gender gap, the burden on women, and you're actually assisting women in different ways, not just through your examples at leaders, but actually through your work, Rebecca's work in fintech, and Ace actually empowering creators, and then Crystal actually with her work in Picaroo, helping lift the burden of care from women, and making it more easy for more people to just care about and take care of the household. So thank you again to Crystal, Ace, and Rebecca. To everyone who's watching, you definitely should be taking notes. If you haven't, you can always rewatch this panel. You've heard a lot of wonderful insights from our 4 panelists today. And I hope that what they've shared will stick with everyone who's watching this panel, and inspire you as you move forward with your own dreams of shaking things up in the startup space. So, as I've mentioned earlier, it's an honor to hear from all 3 of you. And I really, really hope that we see more of these kinds of events and more of these conversations within the startup space. So, for our audience, again, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to stick around for the rest of the day. You don't want to miss out on the community events still happening this afternoon. And you especially don't want to miss out on the Venture Pilipinas pitch to cap off Philippine Startup Week 2021. Once again, this has been Eunice Braga. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
We're moving forward to another panel discussion featuring some amazing women in the Philippine startup ecosystem. After all, this is what this summit is all about. I told you folks, we have exciting things lined up for our last day. We've heard from the government. We've heard from our startup founders. Now, it is time to hear from the women leaders who are tackling gender stereotypes and making waves in the business landscape of the country. Our corporate superwomen are not just pushing boundaries, but are also uplifting the local startup community. To lead a discussion on the future of corporate startup collaboration, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Mr. John Aguilar, creator and host of The Final Pitch on CNN Philippines. Let us all give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. I hope that everyone is having a wonderful and exciting time at this year's Philippines Startup Week 2021. Thank you for joining us today in the Startup Pinay Main Summit program. I'm John Aguilar, and I will be your moderator for the panel today. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am the creator and host of the Philippines' first business reality show, The Final Pitch. It is like our version of Shark Tank, The Apprentice, and The Voice combined in one program. And I am very, very much interested in what is going to happen in today's summit with Startup Pinay because for our next season, we will be coming up with a Shiro's edition specifically focused on female entrepreneurs and startups. So I hope that we are able to invite a lot of you female founders to join us for that one. So I hope you're all ready for the next panel because we've got some strong, iconic women leaders with us today to talk about corporate innovation, the future of corporate startup collaboration. These three women leaders have extensive experience in the startup, telecom, and technology industries. And we know we've got a lot of founders watching today excited to hear from these women leaders of some of the largest leading corporations in the country. So let's jump right in. First, I'd like to introduce Kathy Yap Yang, the Group Head of Corporate Communications of PLDT, who previously served as anchor and managing editor of the ABS-CBN news channel and has taken on the role of communication strategist and advisor of PLDT's top management team. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to the program.
Hey, John. Good to see you. Great to be here.
It's always nice to have you. I think the last time we spoke, it was during another conference with DOT. We had some internet issues that time, but I hope this time around that everything's going to be smooth sailing.
I'm sure it'll be smooth sailing.
Okay, so next we have Ambet Tiero, Senior Managing Director at Accenture Technology and the Accenture Technology Center's lead for APAC, Africa, and the Middle East. Previously, Ambet served as a global Accenture Technology Inclusion and Diversity sponsor, as well as the Global Artificial Intelligence Capability Lead. Great to see you with us, Ambet.
Hello, thank you, John. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, and finally, last but not the least, I'd like to introduce Minette Navarrete, President of Kickstart Ventures, Inc., Senior Vice President at Globe Telecom, and a member of the Board of Directors of AdSpark, Globe's digital advertising subsidiary. Excited to have you here, Minette.
Gosh, I'm thrilled to join. What an amazing panel to be part of. Thanks for having me.
Definitely amazing. We have the MVP group, we have the Ayala group, we have Accenture. It is going to be an exciting panel we have in store for us today. So again, hello to all our speakers with us. It's an honor to have you all here today joining us for the Philippines Startup Week 2021 Startup Pinay Summit. The Startup Pinay program campaigns for enabling more women leaders in the startup and technology space. So I'm sure our audience is looking forward to what you all have to share today. So our key focus for this panel today is to discuss your experiences and insights in working with startups over the years from the perspective of corporations and give insight to our startup founders watching today on how to truly optimize and leverage partnerships with corporations. With that being said, this leads me to my first question. So this first question is for Ambet. So Ambet, we're seeing greater activity from corporates to support startups and founders, creating innovation hubs and venture arms. What are ways that corporate partners uplift startups? Likewise, what are the ways that startups contribute to corporates?
Okay, thank you, John, for that question. First of all, I agree with you. There's been an increased activity around collaboration between corporates and startups. And I believe this is a win-win situation. And in Accenture, we have a global program called Accenture Ventures, where we really act as a bridge between the startups and our clients. So I think the first value that we offer to startups is really access to our clients. And if you talk about Accenture, we work with 91 of the Fortune 100 clients and about three-quarters of the Fortune 500. And so we believe we have a nuanced understanding of the enterprise business issues, which is pretty much the challenge of the startup. So I think that having that access will make their innovations more meaningful, more impactful, and gain traction in the marketplace. And then for startups, of course, we value the speed, the agility, and the nimbleness of the startups. And frankly, when we take startups to our clients, we get differentiation. No? So we're immediately differentiated. So I think that collaboration is very promising, and I hope to see more of that.
Essentially, what you're saying is, in essence, you are a marketplace for all of your clients, essentially. So if a startup wants to work with you, right then and there, you have the top corporations just ready for them to be deployed if ever there is a need. But I'd like to ask, in terms of the access to the market, is that something that you can help out as well?
Yes, yes, of course. And I think that's precisely why I think we are a bridge. No, we can advise startups in terms of what companies are looking for, because we believe that the biggest challenge of startups is not having an idea or even funding, for that matter. It's really the connection between their idea and what will be relevant and what will scale for the industry. And so the corporates have that understanding. We don't have as much ability to be nimble. So I'll give you an example. So we work with a startup called Yellow AI, and their product is really a conversational AI. No? It's a chatbot, which is very comparable with what we would create internally. But our clients, non-English speaking clients, were looking for specific, in this case, African speaking, and Yellow AI was able to uh, modify their product and demo in 3 days. No, which like I said, a win-win for us because Accenture looks good for the clients. We're able to bring this innovative company with us, and we wouldn't have done that in 3 days, no, given our process. So I think that's one way we would partner, and hopefully that creates value for the startup because it definitely creates value for us.
So Ambe, I think Accenture being in the middle of it all definitely helps both parties, and it is really a synergistic way to be able to work with startups. Bearing in mind that the startup and the corporations, they have their respective, I guess, goals that you being in the middle can help facilitate, mediate, and even make sure that these goals get accomplished in the course of working together. So I think the value essentially of being in the middle, cannot be discounted. So thank you, Ambe, for sharing that. And with the support from corporates for startups gradually increasing from different companies in the Philippines, like what Ambe has mentioned, corporates definitely have a bigger impact on the startups that they collaborate with. So this next question is for Kathy. So Kathy, how can corporate startup partnerships lead to better talent development and a more inclusive startup ecosystem? How are you creating a culture of equal opportunity for male and female founders?
Right. I really like the description that Ambe had given earlier. That really it's a win-win situation when you come to think of it. And against the backdrop, if I could just give a backdrop that really cemented this sort of partnership and collaboration between the corporates and the startup. It's really COVID-19. It gave the corporate startup partnerships a big push, if not a pivot or perish moment, because everybody just needed to go digital in one form or another to thrive, if not survive. I mean, it drove us all in the ecosystem to accelerate our innovations. And clearly, if we couldn't go it alone pre-pandemic, we couldn't go it alone more at an accelerated pace. And that goes both ways for the startup community as well. So there's a lot more collaboration going on now because of that acceleration in digitalization. I mean, to this day, John, pre-pandemic motivations still ring true, that it's mutually beneficial for both corporates and for startups to work together. It's a win-win for both because startups help corporates gain early insights into the experimental technologies, the new verticals. They have the agility, the novel ideas that corporates value, to Ambe's point. And on the other hand, the corporates possess the resources and the legitimacy that startups aspire for. And to your question, John, about that gender equality, just to be honest, when we got started, we didn't think about it because we thought about what the startups were capable of. But because we do have an equal opportunity policy, we're starting to think about that, and in a big way. So this is a space to watch, but it's not to say that we're not going to be promoting perhaps women empowerment in the startup community by championing women through contests or maybe competitions. That is something that we're thinking about down the line in our collaboration between the startup community and us as corporates. John.
Definitely the gender lens, very, very critical, especially now. There is a figure, I forget the exact figure, but it is widely known that female startups actually run more successful startup companies. That's a well-known fact that no one can dispute. I think it is something that has been widely accepted now. And thank you, Kathy, for sharing your insights. Now I'd like to go now to Minette. So I want to ask Minette, as a venture arm, you've definitely worked directly with several founders and have been with them through the development of their startup. One specifically, I'd like to mention one of our contestants on the final pitch, Ronster Baityong, who had a failed startup before, but pivoted and eventually created Podcast Network, which is, I think, one of the success stories as well from your relationship with his previous startup. So, I'd like to ask, given the experiences of the startups you've worked with, what is your advice for startups looking to approach corporates for support and potential partnerships? What should be their priorities? And what are the things to keep in mind as they pursue these collaborations?
So that's a great question, John, because I think very frequently, in Asia, there's a sense, as Kathy said, the legitimacy of a big company. In Southeast Asia, especially, startups look for the backing, the partnership that gives them a little air cover, that gives them, that helps open doors. I think one of the first things whenever we make an introduction is we ask them to think hard about what specifically are you interested in? Why do you want this partnership? Why do you want this introduction? Typically for us, I can think of maybe four very concrete, very specific asks that a startup might want. The first and the most obvious thing for me, for us, Kickstart Ventures, is funding, right? Which can be an equity investment, which is that sort of thing that we do, but it can also be non-equity funding, grants, for example, free credits. So we have great tech partners who give free credits, and that's a good thing. What are the other ways in which a startup can perhaps benefit from a corporate? For us, inclusion in the supply chain. So when we, as a telco, we are used to partnering with the large companies, the Ericssons, the Huawei's, the um, Amdocs of this world. um, it's an opportunity for us to introduce a startup who may not be established, who might not have a 10-year track record, but has a great product or great ambition. And to be included in a corporate supply chain is quite helpful for getting a startup on its feet, helping it to scale. The flip side is, could we think of startups as potential customers? And that one's quite different because, particularly when you're thinking of SaaS partnerships and you're thinking of customers that are large enterprises, then they have a very different context from startups as customers. And for us, especially our parent company, Globe Telecom, to be able to offer commercial products to startups might require a bit of a rethink around what is relevant to them, what their economics are. So that's kind of different. And the obvious thing is Are there partnerships? So joint initiatives, whether it's co-marketing, it's distribution partnerships. Telcos have a wide reach, and is that something that can be a platform that helps amplify a startup? So, whether as a recipient of funding, a supplier, a customer, a partner. So those are kind of four very concrete things that a startup might ask for. And as well the kind of the more qualitative, the association, the backing. So for me, it would be to think quite hard and very specifically about what you want to ask for, and ask, because frequently there is, as both Ambe and Kathy have mentioned, there is quite a lot that corporates are interested in as well. And so it's quite a good win-win, and both sides of the table benefit from the partnership.
Yes, and might I add, access to market, being part of the supply chain, as well as a very, I guess, cap table friendly way to be able to work with the corporates, right, and the VCs. It's a great way for them to gain access. At the same time, funding could be seen down the road, right? You get that initial push off first, but eventually it can reap the benefits. And your funder is right there because you're working with them already, right? So definitely a great way to springboard off of the corporate. So we've shared a lot in the last few minutes about all our insights on corporate startup collaboration. So I think I'd love to hear from each one of you on this next question. So, after experiencing COVID-19 from both a corporate and startups ends, how do you see corporate startup partnerships evolving? What are the new emerging ways that corporates and startups can support one another? So, I
I
think
can
some of that
start,
you've touched
John.
on, but go ahead, Mbek.
Yeah, so I think Kathy mentioned this also, no, but COVID not just push a like a fast forward button on innovation for everybody, but it also galvanized corporations and startups in terms of just reflecting on their sense of purpose. And I know the startups have been built around this. No, their driving force is purpose, and a lot of the corporates reflected on this because of COVID. And I think that will drive more synergy. No? Because now, I guess the silver lining is every action, every initiative is around sustainability, inclusion, and diversity. And these are not just words. No, these are not just the right things to say, but it also has impact to the business. So I feel like corporates will need more input from startups, or can learn a lot from startups in this regard. So I think this focus on compressed transformation, where you need to do things faster, um, and themes like sustainability and inclusion and diversity will drive more partnerships for sure. And hopefully the startup will innovate around these areas. And in particular for IND, I'm very happy to share, that Accenture was able to fund local startups earlier this year. We had a grant of 80 million pesos to 10 universities and their attached incubators. And one of the things that we asked them is to focus on these themes. Plus, like for example, for Miriam College, we asked them to prioritize female founders, and for College of St. Benil, this is anyway their focus area already, but we asked them to focus on technologies and ideas around uplifting our PWDs. So I think those things will hopefully, again, galvanize the two sectors into more meaningful initiatives. And we're working with them. It's not just the funding, it's also mentoring, access to our ecosystem partners, as Minette was describing. Corporates, our advantage is we have these alliances with some of the major for example, cloud providers, which will give them resources, not just in terms of people, but also just actual resources that they need to do their work.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ambet. Kathy?
I totally agree with Ambe, and I love that you'd mentioned the phrase sense of purpose, because I think if anything, COVID-19 really gave us a great reset, didn't it? Between the corporates and startups, that we've been given that chance to actually, as Minette had mentioned, treat startups as customers, because that's the only way we'll know what really the world needs. So because of that, and because of that context, we're currently widening our search, routinely screening startups across the Philippines, and we're focusing in major areas. And Ambet mentioned one of them. It's sustainability. That is one of the fulcrums of the new leadership at PLDT. Other areas include Internet of Things, that's IoT, smart city, artificial intelligence, automation. So we're taking a great interest in sustainability because it's a key focus right now and how it relates to making profit in the future responsibly. And the two ways in which we as corporate partners uplift startups, we've got the PLDT InnoLab for one, where PLDT brings a dedicated team to the startup community, and that lab serves as our internal innovation capability to explore, to scout for potential collaboration opportunities. And we take an entrepreneurial approach. We organize the structured programs such as deal flows, hackathons, startup pitching, design thinking activities to create that sustainable innovation culture and idea generation. And the lab also has got co-working spaces that serve as venues for co-development, proof of concept testing, prototyping activities with the startup community. And second, we do get the startups into our innovation generation and smart sweep program. SWEEP is short for Smart Wireless Engineering Education. It is one of a kind of an industry academe linkage program here in the Philippines, much like Accenture has that linkage with the academe. But it's been there for 16 years. It's been helping produce industry-ready graduates or technopreneurs, leveraging in our network, infrastructure and technologies. And if I could just give you some data, SWEEP has a network of 32 colleges and universities all over the country, offering ECE and IT courses. So these are just some of the ways we as corporate partners are uplifting startups and in a wider sense, because we've already widened our search post-pandemic through the new normal. Done.
That's awesome, Kathy. A lot of initiatives from the MVP group. What about the Ayala group, Minette?
Oh, well, funny you should ask, because quite a lot of the initiatives, and especially if we cast our eye back to a year ago, a year and a half ago, when the pandemic was starting, a lot of the initiative in the Philippines was actually driven by corporate partnerships, which included the Ayala Group working with the MVP Group, working with the Aboitizes, the Gokongways. One of the wonderful things you see in the Philippines is how very closely the corporate community came together. And I think a lot of that is driven by an awareness that there are great ecosystem impacts that the pandemic has brought, and that we, however successful a conglomerate, a company might be, it does not matter if the ecosystem, if the community that we are part of does not survive. So one of the things, for example, that Ayala is celebrating this month is it's been about a year. It's the first year anniversary of the Ayala Enterprise Circle, which was a real initiative driven by the realism. We were watching last year 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 MSMEs just shuttering because typically an SME in the Philippines has 2 months of capital, of working capital. So how can we bring that back? How can we recover our economic standing, our economic growth, if the MSMEs do not recover? And so we have initiatives that are meant very specifically around retooling our companies, our partner relationships, our merchant relationships to make sure that on one hand, the SMEs that we currently work with are supported, and on the other hand, that new MSMEs, whether they are tech or not tech, that they are encouraged to start, that they're encouraged and they are supported in order to scale. So that kind of is part of what excites us these days. Obviously, we have a bias for technology, and as large companies, there's much to learn from the startups around being capital efficient, around being frictionless. And those lessons, I think we will carry with us, even past when the pandemic, when the quarantines are over. You said a great reset. I think you mentioned earlier. The other thing that we're very proud of is, perhaps if you're reading global news, Western media will talk about the Great Resignation.
Yes.
Um, and for us, I think the way we were talking to this folks from Salesforce.com yesterday, and they were saying perhaps it's not necessarily so much that as it is the great reassessment. And particularly at Globe, a lot of our team are millennials and Gen Z. And they are very good for reminding us about what are the things that matter. How do we change the way we work? We haven't yet devised the formula for returning to work, but we are 100% certain that the way we work as a company is changed forever. And how we are going to reshape our return to work is probably going to be a combination of things that we have done in the past, but also new practices, new processes, new protocols that will work better, not just for an efficient, profitable company, but also for happy, engaged, safe um, team members within the conglomerate.
Yeah, I totally agree. This has never happened in our lifetime. We have never prepared for an event like this. So everyone is just also trying to see the best ways to be able to address going back home. Going back to work and making the most of the current situation. So Minette, Ambe, and Kathy, thank you very much for sharing your points today. To the founders watching, you'll definitely want to take their word for it. We've heard some wonderful insights from our three panelists today, and I certainly hope that these insights will be helpful for you founders looking to partner with corporations soon. I believe we have time for one last question before we wrap up. So my last question to all the panelists, any upcoming partnerships and projects for our founders to watch out for? So anything that you have not yet mentioned that they should know, and maybe they can participate in those.
So John, for us in Accenture, I mentioned the grants that we gave just last August, and we have been busy in the last quarter working with the incubators. And so far, I will say the ideas are very promising. So the first cohort, but we realize there's a lot to be done. No? So one ask maybe I have of the audience is from the Philippines, and of course Accenture being focused on technology, we want to see more deep tech ideas around AI, robotics, edge computing, because I think those will really differentiate us. No? So hopefully we'll see more of that. But we're excited about the ideas that will come out of those grants.
Thank you. I'm back, Kathy.
Yeah, John, we recently concluded the PLDT and Smart Startup Innovation Challenge. It's simple proof that corporates and startups can work together with that common goal, and it's developing the innovations that would benefit the community, the country. What we're really delighted to share and super excited about is the sandbox, this testing environment for startups interested to co-develop solutions with us. So it's something that we're trying to put up together so we can co-develop our solutions, doing the prototyping in our lab together with the startup community. And this is something that the startups in our current cohorts have brought up with us. They've been asking if PLDT and Smart will have their own sandbox. So in any case they want to co-develop with us moving forward, any open APIs or open platforms we may have. And we think it's a really great initiative we can start with to get more collaboration opportunities with the developers, the startups, and of course connecting those innovations that we will be developing for our enterprise clients as well.
Looking forward to that, Kathy. For those of you who have seen or watched the startup series, the Korean series startup, Sandbox there is definitely, if we can do that here, I think that will generate a lot of tech and non-tech interest from our founders. So I think that's definitely something that we will all look forward to. And finally, Minette, last few words from you.
Oh, well, maybe what to watch out for. You know how, John, you were saying in the beginning, you've got a series for Shiros coming up.
Yes.
I think when you look at the people in Globe, we have a bunch of CEOs. So whether it is our CFO, then our Riza Maniego Ayala, or our head of commercial, Chief Commercial Officer Isa Cabrera, the CEO of Mint, Gcash, which recently announced a $300 million funding. There are a lot of women leaders who are coming up. And I think that's important for people to see because representation is such an important thing. I think in terms of, what are the programs and platforms available, very, very much like a number of, the lessons that we've taken from Ayala, we've got a number of initiatives, digital initiatives in Globe, whether it's AdSpark or 917 Ventures or Consulta MD or Health Now. And each of those has a particular focus, whether it's in fintech or health or advertising or content. And I guess the ask for the audience is reach out to us, whether you're looking at for funding and therefore you would go to Kickstart, or you're looking for partnerships. Come over, reach out. We're friendly. We're happy to make introductions. The more bridges we can build across the ecosystem, the better for everybody.
Thank you for that, Manette. I love the fact that you said that you're friendly because some people or some startups might be intimidated because you have a certain investment thesis in mind. But apart from that, you have said that you can make the introductions. You can facilitate things beyond investment on behalf of your fund. So looking forward to more people reaching out to you, to the MVP group, to Accenture, and I guess ecosystem players really have to work together. And for those of you also who know of other groups, it won't hurt to also make introductions on behalf of those corporations, those entities. It's really, at the end of the day, a matter of working together. And that's really what is going to make our startup ecosystem all the more the better for the years to come. So, and with that, I believe we can close today's panel. Thank you very much, Minette and Kathy,
so much
for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, it's an honor to hear from you three, to have our audience learn from your experiences and to prepare them for future collaborations for their startups. And to our audience today, thank you for joining us in today's panel. Don't forget to stick around for the rest of the Startup Pinay Summit. We still have some wonderful speakers after this, and you won't want to miss out on our community events this afternoon and the Venture Pilipinas pitch to cap off the Philippine Startup Week 2021. Once again, this is John Aguilar, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much to our inspiring panelists. You all shared wonderful points that we will keep in mind. As stated by these amazing women, we live in a time where these giant corporations are looking to innovate and are incentivized to pursue a mutually beneficial collaboration with startups. Your drive and fresh ideas, alongside the guidance and assistance from these corporations, can produce remarkable results. The best time to expand the scope of your startup is now. The fear to involve other people in your company can be paralyzing. However, as these amazing women leaders emphasize, by working together, you can be reinforced with the much needed boost in order to grow. We're about to enter our final panel discussion for today's summit, and you certainly do not want to miss the opportunity to learn from these iconic women. To lead the discussion on Tech to Thrive, building a pandemic-proof business with tech startups, I'd like to introduce Ms. Bea Lim, Managing Director of Team Asia, to moderate our final panel for this morning. Let us all give her a warm round of applause.
Hello, 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 and good morning, everybody. I hope you are all having a wonderful and exciting time right here at the Philippines Startup Week 2021. Thank you so much to our fabulous audience for joining us today in the Startup Pinay Main Summit program. We are so happy you could join us on this fabulous day, and we can't wait to share what's in store for us in this panel discussion. I'm Bea Lim. I'm the Managing Director of Team Asia, and I am so honored to be the moderator of this last panel for today's session. I hope you are all ready because this topic is super timely, and I feel that there are so many things that we can actually learn, grow, and get inspired with just learning about today's topic. Today's Startup Pinay Summit panel segment is going to be about Tech to Thrive, building a pandemic-proof business with tech startups. It's such a great topic, ladies and gentlemen, because we are here today to really look into the world and see, what's in store for us. What's the path forward? With this year's Startup Pinay theme, or this conference theme of Beyond Recovery, I cannot wait to bring in our wonderful, inspiring, and really great women founders or female founders who have not only just survived, but have thrived and really pushed their businesses forward in this pandemic. So without further ado, I'm just going to bring in the lovely ladies to the virtual stage and get our amazing conversation started. And with that, I would like to bring in our first speaker or our first panelist for today's segment, Miss Mel Nava, the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder at One Export. Mel Nava, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Mel.
Hi, Bea. Hi, nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. How are you today, Mel? Hip and happening?
Yeah, we're doing great. I just came from a meeting and, we hope to be able to really contribute to the discussion today.
Absolutely. I have no doubt. So hang on tight, Mel. I can't wait to start the conversation. All right. Next up, we have Rio Ilao, who is the founder and Chief Executive Officer at Tarky. Great to see you here, Rio.
Hi, Bea. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much also for having me. It's really an honor to be doing this alongside other female founders who I admire and respect. So looking forward to our discussion today.
Me too, Rio. I'm getting excited just having you and Mel on the screen. I'm already loving the energy. So let's call on our third panelist as well. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Elaine Develes, the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Front Learners. Hey, Elaine.
Hi, Bea. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And to my co-founders from Idea Space. Also, we're all alumni of the great Idea Space. Happy to see you again, ladies.
Oh my goodness, I am in the company of such power women. I just, can't wait to get this conversation started. Thank you so much for joining us, Elaine. And on that note, we have with us our last panelist, and I'm very excited for all of you guys to meet her. We have with us Abby Victorino, the Chief Executive Officer at Go Genie Solutions. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Bea. Hi, everyone. Oh my God, so happy to see familiar faces, my fellow female founders. Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, Abby. We are so grateful that you are with us today. And, today we really get to talk about tech to thrive. And you amazing ladies have such fabulous stories. I've been reading up on all of your businesses and all of the different things that you guys are doing. And I truly believe that our audiences can really learn from each and every one of your inspiring stories. So it's such an honor to bring all of these great women together so that we can talk about such an important topic. As you guys know, the Startup Pinay program campaigns for enabling more women leaders in the startup and technology space. So I am very sure that our audience is looking forward to hearing more about your different programs and what you have to share today, ladies. So on that note, I would like to share with everybody our key focus for the panel today. Today, we want to discuss actually your experiences and insights in not only surviving, but actually thriving and turning things around during the pandemic as a woman founder. Ladies, you guys are such amazing lady bosses, and I would love for you guys to share your experiences and inspire those people who are thinking about their businesses, who are already planning for 2022 as we move forward in a hopefully post COVID era. It's really an understatement to say that, the past 2 years have been a game changer and a real challenge to most startups. But all of you have shown in your very own startups, in your very own industries, how it is actually possible to pivot and thrive in times like these. See, look at those lovely faces. They're all smiling because they have such great stories to tell. So to our dear audience, I'm sure the founders out there is looking forward to learning more about how Mel, Rio, Elaine, and Abby did it all and how they continue to shake things up. That being said, I'm just going to go ahead and start off our wonderful conversation. Mel, you're up first. I do have a first question, right? Mel, one export is a cross-border export and fulfillment service firm. How did you navigate through the unprecedented changes in the export restrictions? I mean, Mel, especially in NCR where, quarantine restrictions were changing and, we had to wait to actually know what was going to happen, right? How did you navigate through all of that? I'm really curious.
Well, for one, exporting is an essential industry. So I think when if you want to think about making a startup, think of what is essential first. And fortunately, during the pandemic, we were in that essential industry. The I guess the main challenge for us back then was that now that we are stripped off with the things that were the basically what people would call the tools of the trade. We were stripped off of travel, we were stripped off of trade shows, for example, where we normally find buyers abroad, right? How do you navigate through that, or how do you survive through that, right? And so the first thing we did was we made sure that our tech was up and running. So for example, people would try to find products from the Philippines going to the different markets they want, they need the products, no? So for example, Middle East or Europe, right? And for the first thing I think we did was make sure that in terms of search engine optimization, Facebook relevance, we were there, right? The second thing that we had to do, because of the pandemic, right? The regulations because of the pandemic, the regulations became much stricter. So you needed more compliances. So you're not just talking about your normal FDAs, right? You're talking about compliances abroad also. So they needed, for example, certain documents to make sure that the products could clear customs, right? And we all had to do that virtually. One way we did that was we made sure that we had a really good network. So we leveraged our network of brokers, our logistics partners, our buyers, in order to really pull through what seemed to be a very impossible task of doing cross-border trade. And I guess really, of course, even with all of these challenges, we made sure we had a really good team and a strong team. So one way to do it is to make sure that we test them every week, or we test them every month. We make sure that they're, now my whole team is vaccinated, right? And we provide say vitamins, food, so that they don't have to get exposed. all of these we provide, as well as training, as well as developing systems. We've recently launched our ERP system so that we have lesser mistakes now that we're processing more orders, and also like making sure that everyone is aligned in the mission of bringing more Philippine products to the rest of the world.
Hey Mel, that's fantastic. I mean, you shared such great nuggets of wisdom, but I wanted to zero in on what you shared earlier. And what I wrote down here is strong team equals strong business, right? It was really about making sure that you took care of your team as well. My follow-up question for you, Mel, is how did you prepare your team for the different changes? It's great to know that, you already had your systems in place, but when everything came in and there were so many challenges in terms of, what the restrictions were and how to navigate cross-border trade when we had our own quarantine restrictions here in the Philippines. How did you prepare your team and what did it entail as a CEO to push it forward? Because I know how tough that is.
I mean, when the quarantine restrictions were first, announced, right? Actually, on a cash flow perspective, we weren't very healthy, right? So I think the first thing I did was talk to my team and tell them, look, we have to survive this. I want you all to have your jobs, and I need you to work your hardest, at least in the next 3 months, so that we can all survive, we can all thrive, and we make sure that you have your jobs by the end of this pandemic, right? Because of course job security was one of the major questions during the quarantine restrictions, right? So I think it was very clear. We've set out really important goals for every team to meet, right? And we would check up on each other every week. We would have town halls so that we could get a feel of how much progress has been achieved over time. And yeah, we were able to see growth, month on month, from every team, and eventually that translated to the growth of our numbers in our financial statements, and also our customer growth. So I think by setting a clear goal at the very beginning, right? Like first it was okay, now we have to survive, right? And after surviving, we're like, okay, how do we grow this business so that, say, we can give you all raises during the pandemic, right? So those were clear goals we set for the team, and I think it translated, and now we are growing. We're very happy that a lot of buyers around the world trust us. During the pandemic, we were selling to about 4 markets. Before the pandemic, we were only selling to about 4 markets. During 2020, we ended up selling to 12 different markets, and now we're selling to 32 different markets this year alone. So we really grew. And this is really because of the clear focus in terms of goal and vision. And of course, also making sure that the team is strong and is well equipped during the pandemic.
Well, Mel, congratulations. I mean, what an amazing turnaround story. I mean, it brought me back to March of 2020 where I had that same conversation with my team, right? At that time when things were so uncertain, communication was key, really. Everything was uncertain, but the mission, I love what you said, making sure that everybody was one in the mission to really push forward and to tackle all of those different goals, and then having those milestones per month on month, really contribute to a strong team. So Mel, congratulations on that. You heard it from Mel, ladies and gentlemen. I think that just to wrap everything up with what Mel said, again, great nuggets of wisdom. First, of course, we need to see, make sure that our tech is running. I love what you said, Mel, because that's number one. Make sure that our tech is running and be where our customers are. But more importantly, make sure that the people who are driving our businesses forward are well equipped, are healthy, and are one in the mission of pushing forward. If you have those two things, ladies and gentlemen, and clear communication, then yes, you'll be able to navigate through unprecedented times for sure. Thank you so much, Mel, for sharing your comments on that one. Like one export, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people have had to adjust and pivot along the way due to the circumstances. And certainly a lot of our different startups have had to do that one way or another. I have another speaker with us here today, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be bringing Rio Ilaw to the virtual stage now. Rio, Tarky, Tarky is a field force automation system, right? And we love how this is making the waves. But of course, also with the pandemic, we also know that a lot of companies actually had to either cut their workforce into half or actually pursue a skeletal workforce. I'm very curious, how did you adjust to the changing needs of your clients? And what were the priorities when making this pivot or the business decision?
Yeah, thanks, Bea, for that question. First of all, kudos to Mel and Team One Export. I was so inspired listening to her story and how were they able to really cope and thrive during the pandemic. So again, congrats, Mel. Um, for us, as Bea mentioned, Tariki started out as a field force automation solution. We were quite fortunate because many of our clients, majority of our clients, were actually in industries that were not severely affected by the pandemic. So, in fact, many of our clients that are in manufacturing and sales and distribution even saw their businesses grow during that time. Okay, but that said, we did see a shift in working arrangements. So before, it was really a combination of office and field work, but now it's really more of a work from home setup. In fact, for our own team, we're still on a full work from home arrangement until now. So one of the things that we did was to really evolve Tarki from being a field work to now a full remote work solution. So integrating with Zoom, incorporating virtual meetings, it's actually one of the first upgrades, first functionalities that we added during the pandemic. So from doing on-site, imagine before employees would do on-site visits, on-site meetings, now everything had to happen virtually. And companies had to have a way to measure productivity. And we needed to be able to add that now right away into Tarki. Another thing that we also incorporated is, making sure that Tarki is now really a multi-platform solution from being predominantly mobile before. No? Since before it was field work, so the design was really a mobile solution. But now it has to be a multi-platform solution. So we need to have a strong web functionality, even desktop, and now mobile, so that employees can easily shift, no, working from their laptops to their mobile phones. So basically, those were things that we really had to incorporate immediately to be able to respond to the requirements of our clients and be able to evolve with them. And in fact, one of the learnings that we have is really being agile and being open to opportunities during this time, no? Because on the one hand, the pandemic really affected some industries, some businesses, but at the same time, it also opened up a lot of opportunities. As a founder, as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to be open, be sensitive to these new opportunities, and not be ashamed to pivot or change. And in fact, also one of the things that we observed, which happened maybe as a blessing in disguise, no, um, companies have actually become more receptive, more focused on the strategy of automation and digital transformation. Before the pandemic, it was hard to sell the idea of automation because, as you know, in the Philippines, labor is cheap, no? So it's easy to do things manually. But when the pandemic happened, there was not it's not an option anymore. So companies really had to have a deliberate strategy on automation and digital transformation. So in a way, it was like a blessing in disguise for us because we even saw our inquiries grow as a result of it.
No, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. I always say this. I really feel that we were launched into the biggest tech experiment of mankind, right? It was like we like the idea, but there was always something stopping folks, right? That's how I felt. But then, when it was go time, it was really go time, right? And I think actually, Rio, I wanted to key in with what you said earlier, that really the priority was not so much into just getting a list of things that you needed to change. It was shifting as your audience shifted, right? And I feel based on what you shared, it was actually also your clients shifting in terms of what was needed and what you could
Correct.
provide. So,
Correct.
it's really for me a give and take relationship, being able to be solution finders for our clients, but also,
Exactly.
also changing the mindset, right? And the skill sets that are out there. Rio, I do have a second question for you. As I mentioned earlier, I've been reading up on these fabulous women, and I'm so inspired also with your family life. I know that you're not only a successful business owner, but you are also a fabulous and hip and happening mama, right? So I know
Yes,
that
I have
during the
three
pandemic,
children.
yeah, three kids. And I know that during the pandemic, like what you said, you are 100% work from home. So I also wanted to know, like, as women founders, this is the reality. How was that shift of having to also not only manage your business, but managing the household as well?
Yeah. Before the pandemic, I didn't really entertain the thought of offering a work from home arrangement. Frankly speaking, to our team, because I was worried of productivity issues. I was worried, um, results would suffer and stuff like that. But then when the lockdown was announced, when the pandemic happened, and we didn't really have a choice, it proved to be actually a very good setup, for me and our company. So personally speaking, for our family, I actually appreciate the work from home setup now. I am able to have meals with my kids the whole day, breakfast, lunch, merienda, dinner. That used to be a luxury back then. I would only be able to eat with them at night. But now, we're able to do that every day. So it's something that I appreciate, because it allows me to, in a way, be able to mix life and work more easily, like squeeze in a little bit of exercise before a meeting. Those things you cannot do before. And I think what has really helped me is having the right tools, as Mel mentioned, ensure that you have the technology strategy in place, having the right tools in place to be able to manage your team remotely and effectively. So of course there's a tech side, no, there's
Of
Starkey, there
course.
are other technologies and stuff like that. But I think one thing I can share that really helped our team become more productive during this time, when the lockdown was announced and we offered a work from home arrangement for our employees, one of the requirements is they had to be able to submit or plan a daily activity report. Now we call it DAR. Um, and when they clock in, they basically plan their day. It's a list of activities and tasks that they need to accomplish during the day. And myself, also with the other managers, in the morning, we look at all of those, we review them, assess them, adjust if necessary, and in a way that's enabled us to manage our team more effectively without the need to micromanage them. And then at the end of the day, when they clock out, that's when they submit their accomplishments. So I think little things like this, um, you know, it enables us to, I think, offer also a better work-life balance for our employees. And at the end of the day, happy employees would also mean more productive employees.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I was thinking actually was when you were sharing your managing work with home life, it really is work life integration at
Correct.
this point,
Correct.
right?
Yes, I
Great.
love
Thank
that
you.
word. Integration, then balancing.
Integration.
Yes,
I
correct.
know. It's the key word for everybody now, integrating ourselves, right? Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about how to manage all of these things, Rio, and also of course, how we need the tools, but also knowing that there are so many opportunities for us to evolve both personally and professionally as well. Now, I'd like to actually call on our next panelist, Elaine, to the virtual stage. Now, Elaine, this is actually a perfect segue because Rio started talking about home life, right? And
Yeah.
we know managing home life is also, especially for our parents out there, includes technology with education, right? So while we know that the pandemic has brought on some barriers to some of the businesses out there, it has actually also provided a lot of growth opportunities, right, for other industries, especially e-learning, where Front Learners is part of. Now, Elaine, I know Front Learners focuses on e-learning and making education technology more accessible to all students. With online schooling becoming a norm across the country, how did you actually leverage on this new circumstance, given that front learners actually was already doing online education prior to COVID. Could you share your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, actually, the Philippines education technology or e-learning was really very underdeveloped pre-pandemic. It's like the conversations were like, why e-learning? What's the benefit for the school, the students, the teachers? Oh, we've been doing this for the longest time. Why change? So it was really an uphill climb or battle for us. And then suddenly, the future came. It's like it's not anymore a conversation of why. When we were approached by people or schools, it's like, how can we have e-learning now? So yes, the pandemic in a way opened up, you know opportunities to make e-learning more mainstream. So what did we do? First, of course, the existing clients, the early adopters. So for them, they suddenly realized there's really no business disruption at all. When the lockdown was announced in March, they were able to continue and finish, without any problem. And they were able to start the next school year again without any problem. Now, for the schools who did not have e-learning yet, we were like a lifeline. It was a matter of allowing them to be able to have business continuity in such very uncertain times. Now, actually, the ecosystem of education in the Philippines is very disproportionately skewed towards public education. Pre-pandemic, 85% of our students go to public schools, and only 15% actually are private schools. So you could imagine the huge burden on our Department of Education on how to go about learning continuity at such a difficult time. So actually, truth be told, 2 days after the lockdown was announced, I called the Department of Education and offered our services, not thinking what business model is there, what will I gain, but really because we have a solution that works, that they can use immediately to bridge this gap from the sudden lockdown or shutdown of schools just to finish. And so we help provide ideas, suggestions, different modalities. Okay, this is what we can do for children with connectivity. This is what we do for children without connectivity, children with devices, children without devices, children with TV, children with cable, and those who really have nothing at all. So I guess that gesture of being able to offer ourselves with no agenda but simply to help really established a credibility and a trust relationship. That's and so to this date now, DepEd has been really very appreciative and has been touching base with us whenever there are solutions that they need some opinion from a private sector. And so, in a way, we felt that, it doesn't matter if we are a startup or a big institution. What matters is that you are willing to rise to the situation and offer a solution that is relevant to many stakeholders. So that is actually, I would say, what the biggest, I would say, accomplishment that we have during this pandemic is not just to mainstream e-learning, but be able to touch more learners, which is what really is needed during this time.
Absolutely, Elaine. That was so touching. I loved everything that you shared. But more importantly, what you said earlier, that we had a solution that we knew would work and that would be able to bridge the gap. And that was what was important, right? Whatever the business model was, it would come. But what was more important was learning continuity. It was really about being able to build the nation up through education. Elaine, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much. Now, I think we can definitely see, ladies and gentlemen, from front learners and the learning industry, how opportunities like this, is very much there. What we just need to do is to be able to grab those opportunities, but also be able to showcase how our solutions will actually help people bridge the gap or really find meaningful ways for them to continue with their businesses or how they live their lives, especially in tough times. Now, I also just wanted to quickly check in with Abby as well. Now, Abby, it's no surprise, right, that the demand for last mile delivery rapidly increased during the pandemic, right? During the last 2 years. With other competitors also penetrating the market, what did you, Go Genie, focus on to be able to meet the demand of your customers, but also stay competitive when a lot of new players were coming into the fold?
Right, thanks, Bea. So our pivot is kind of also different because previously I was a founder of Style Genie, which is a non-essential when the pandemic happened, right? So all of a sudden we cannot deliver clothing, and we didn't know what to do with our riders, our stylists, etc. So and like what Rio also and the rest of the ladies right here mentioned, diba? When there's an opportunity, you should really like grab it first and then figure out later how to actually solve it, right? Because it's an opportunity. And for me, I've been doing e-commerce consultation for the longest time. I think I've been in the industry for 9 years, and the pandemic really changed the way even our the brands, the retail brands that we used to like chase after, suddenly they're the ones who are asking for help. Like they don't know what they need for digital commerce or e-commerce yet, but we know that uh, you can help us. So things like that suddenly happen without me going after them, and that's a great surprise, but also like a very positive um, change for me that I noticed because of the pandemic. So more than anything else, like the challenges, of course, are there. I saw a great opportunity, and that's how we came about grocerygenie.ph. So that's the second genie that I gave birth to last year, and surprisingly, it was a happy pivot because since they knew the genie branding, I didn't have to promote it, or so it was a hard sell basically, because number one, it's an essential, and two, they already know what the genies do, like personal shopper for groceries. But of course there were challenges also because like you mentioned, there's so many grocery platforms like popping almost every week. There's a new grocery genie, there's a new grocery platform, there's a new niche on demand service out there. And for us to maintain competitive, we didn't compete. That's it. We didn't compete at all, because what we noticed is that everyone else was competing on the customer end, or the B2C, and um, the HRs, the corporate procurement officers, the LGUs, the community pantry organizers are coming after us. So that's when we figured out, hey, why don't we just focus on B2B or wholesale? And that's how we again pivoted around, I think around September last year. So like what they said earlier, I think it was Rio, uh, don't be afraid of changing or pivoting. What matters is that when we opened the business, our mission was to help retailers sell more, because I've been consulting for these FMCG brands for years. And since they were also hit, even though they're FMCGs and essentials, they were also hit because the traditional sales weren't as effective as before. They had to cut, they went to massive retail officers scattered around the metro or around the Philippines, down to like 20% only of salespeople. So they were really the ones also who needed help. Aside from sending deliveries to customers, we needed to help HRs to send to employees, because there's no way HRs can engage to employees nowadays. So there was an opportunity, clearly, And all we had to do was really talk to these HRs, procurement officers, the wholesale buyers, what they actually need for a platform to work for them. So that's what we did. We talked to the customers, but we didn't compete with the existing market anymore. So yeah, I guess tapping in the blue ocean strategy, no. So yun, that's what we did to remain on top of the game.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I love what you said earlier. We didn't compete because you focus on your niche. You know, you had a product, you had a solution, you focused on your niche and you went for it, right? For every opportunity. And you made it happen. So congratulations also to you, Abby, and the different genies, as you mentioned, that you gave birth to last year. All right, now I have just, a wealth of information that we've heard from Abby, Elaine, Rio, and Mel. Ladies, I am bringing all of you guys on the virtual stage because I have a very important question. And this is a great way for us to actually bring everything that we've been discussing into a fabulous and forward looking conclusion. Just the last few minutes, we've shared the different insights on your pivot, how you've evolved and how you've shifted. But now, what I want to ask you is how do we now look forward to all of the different founders and, people in our audience who are looking at what we're going to do in 2022? My big question is what is the one important thing to keep in mind as a founder considering the imminent COVID-19 presence for the foreseeable future? I'm going to call Mel first. Mel, what is that one thing that's important for you? Go ahead.
For me, it's important to take comfort in the fact or be comfortable in the hard things, right? So take comfort in the discomfort, as they say, right? Because um every day you will be thrown a curveball, right? Because of so much uncertainty. And just to understand that, it's okay. It's okay. This uncertainty is okay, and you will make it through, right? As Mariah Carey says, like, you will make it through the rain, right? And I guess that is really comforting to know as a founder, right? I mean, it's going to be hard, but it'll be okay.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Take comfort in the discomfort. Mel, Nava. Let's go on to Rio. Rio, what do you have to say?
Yeah, for me, as a founder, be open to opportunities and learn to adapt. For us, our mission as a company for Tarki is it's not to be the best uh, field force automation system, but it's to be a partner of our clients in their digital transformation journey. So whatever that means, so if it means us offering a sales and inventory system, if it means us offering a work from home system, that's what we will do. And because of that mindset, we were also able to grow our startup. No, Tarki used to be just a tracking system, a location tracking system, but we added digital forms, we added sales, and now it's become a fully loaded tool for companies to use. And at the end of the day, when you're open, when you are agile, that's also how you will be able to grow your startup, to grow your product.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rio, Ilaw, ladies and gentlemen. Be open and adapt. Don't be afraid to evolve. Let's go on to Elaine. Elaine, what is that one thing that you have to keep in mind?
Yeah, I guess as a founder, it's always important to step back and reassess the problem that you are solving and to always go back to your purpose or to your why. So, because whether there is pandemic or no pandemic, the problem that you should be solving should be relevant and that your solution should be essential and meaningful. So Front Learners was formed because we believe that every Filipino child deserves the same opportunity as their counterparts globally. So, and education is the key to unlock these opportunities. And e-learning is simply a tool. So, given this framework, we believe that whatever the situation is, so long as we have something that can help uplift the quality and access to education of the Filipino child, we will remain relevant. So I advise founders to always acid test the problem that they are solving. Will that problem be still relevant in a case of a pandemic, or less relevant, or be more relevant? Now, if you are able to answer, then the solution will naturally follow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Elaine De Velas, ladies and gentlemen, saying that we always have to go back to our why to remain relevant. You know, Elaine, you brought me back to my favorite quote of all time of Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. There you go. And of course, we are headed over to Miss Abby Victorino. Hi, Abby. What is that one thing as a founder that you will hold very close to your heart?
Okay, one thing that's very difficult. For me is as a founder, don't focus on what others are doing. Focus on what you can do or what value you can actually do for the stakeholders that you promise to. Like for us, it's about the sellers. Our mission is to help the sellers sell more. And if we keep looking right and left to what other competitors or platforms are doing, we're gonna do the same things, right? Or even do the same mistakes. So for us, it's focusing on what else is in the future, looking ahead, looking outside the Philippines, even not just looking, at what others are doing, but where you are right now, where you were last year, and where you're headed. So just focus on what you're doing, focus on your mission, like what Mel said earlier. Focus and over communicate that to your team, even to yourself. Sometimes we forget because of the hustle and bustle, but we have to always keep that in check. Focus on that, and work hard on it day in and day out. So that's for me as a founder. Focus is very important. Focus on what matters. That's it.
Absolutely. I love that last line. Focus on what matters. Tune out the noise. There's a lot of noise out there, but you matter. And if you focus on your journey, you're going to be able to push forward. Ladies and gentlemen, big, big, big congratulations and big sparkles to our amazing lady founders on this screen that I have had the honor of interviewing. Mel, Rio, Elaine, Abby, you are superpowers. Thank you so much for whatever it is that you are doing for our communities, lifting us up and teaching us and showing us that things can be done. Virtual big applause to our dear speakers, to the founders who are watching right at this instant. You definitely want to take their word for it. We've heard not only such wonderful news and insights from these four fabulous women, but we have learned life lessons and business lessons as we move forward in this post-COVID world. We are going to power through, and we have these four amazing stars to show us that direction. Maraming salamat once again, Mel, Rio, Elaine, and Abby. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to have to conclude this great conversation. I don't want to, because there's just so many more things that I am sure you also want to ask our lady bosses here. But for today, we will leave you with this. According to them, take comfort in the discomfort. Be open and don't be scared to adapt and evolve as your clients and as the audience does. Go back to your why and focus on your journey so that whatever happens as we move forward, we are able to go back to the mission. Because, ladies and gents, if you have a solution that works, push it forward and push it forward with all the gusto that you have, because we are here for a reason, and that is what matters. There you have it. Thank you so much for joining us for the Tech to Thrive panel discussion. As I've mentioned earlier, it has been such an honor to moderate this great conversation with Mel, Rio, Elaine, and Abby. I am so sure you are as inspired as I am, and that we are going to go into our 2022 planning with really fire in our spirits and the hope for an amazing future ahead of us. To our wonderful audience, thank you so much for joining us once again for today's panel. Don't forget to stick around. Lots and lots of great things happening for today. You wouldn't want to miss out on the community events happening right this afternoon, as well as the Venture Pilipinas pitch to cap off the Philippine Startup Week 2021. Once again, this is Bea Lim, Managing Director of Team Asia, signing off. Have a great day, everybody. And remember, what matters is the future, and you are the ones driving it. So let's rock and roll. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
You've heard it firsthand from these game changers and innovators. We hope that all of you young entrepreneurs watching today have been inspired by all the experiences, wisdom, and advice that our iconic speakers have shared today. As these wonderful women have shared, leadership and entrepreneurship is not easy. Uncertainties such as the pandemic can easily derail plans and can interfere with your goals. However, as long as you maintain that drive and continue to persevere, innovate, and pivot, we can overcome these problems and thrive. Once again, a big thank you to our guests, speakers, panelists, and viewers for joining us this morning for the Startup Pinay Conference. To everyone watching, stay tuned on the platform for the rest of the day. You don't want to miss out on the rest of the community events happening this afternoon. And of course, the Venture Pilipinas Startup Pitch to cap off the Philippine Startup Week 2021 online conference Beyond Recovery, Filipino Startups Redefining Opportunity.